So it is 7:02 p.m. on April 28th, 2021, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Len, could you please call the roll?
Dan Haggerty.
Here.
Dr. Todd. Claire. Claire, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm
And the
here.
sun's in her eyes.
Dave Olson. Here. Jill Grant.
Here.
Greg Diegas.
Here.
Michelle Weil.
Here.
And I'm here, all seven.
Great, thank you. First, we'll go to the Board of Supervisors report and reports from other government officials. We'll start with Lena for the Board of Supervisors report. Go ahead, Lena.
Thank you, Michelle. And I just want to mention that this time I'm not going to say that I'm going to put things in the chat. Just assume that everything I talk about, there's going to be something in the chat for. So I want to start with COVID-19. San Mateo County is currently within the orange tier of California's tiered system. Our test positivity and health equity metric both fall within the less restrictive yellow tier. Unfortunately, our adjusted case rate still remains within that orange tier and is keeping us from moving to a less restrictive tier. About vaccinations, this week San Mateo County has begun to receive an increase of vaccinations from the federal government, and due to this increase, we will be reopening our mass vaccination site at the San Mateo County Event Center. This will be coupled with the continuation of smaller scale community-focused vaccination clinics around the county. I also did want to mention that San Mateo County, following the guidance from the CDC, will restart administering the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Briefly about the COVID-19 relief programs, we are continuing our support of a variety of businesses and individuals through the San Mateo County Strong website. But I did want to mention that the rental assistance program has been updated and that the federal government's Restaurant Revitalization Fund will begin receiving applications on May 3rd. There are two ordinance updates I wanted to give you guys a heads up about. The first is a firearm dealership ordinance that is being brought forth to the Board of Supervisors by Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Pine. This ordinance will institute larger buffer zone, institute new buffer zones from schools and residential areas for firearm dealerships within the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County. It will also require firearm dealers to follow stringent safety measures for storing guns and ammunition, among other new forms of regulation. If you have any questions about this ordinance, please feel welcome to email me. I'd be happy to talk about it. Or if you have any comments, I'd be happy to take those as well. The other ordinance update I wanted to let you know about is that Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Slocum are looking to bring a new ordinance that will provide increased fines for those illegally selling and using fireworks within unincorporated San Mateo County. I have two more updates. My second to last one is that county parks wildfire fuel management projects. San Mateo County Parks added two new documents last Friday with information regarding their wildfire fuel management projects to their website. The first of these documents contains high-level project descriptions for each of the 32 planned projects that they want to implement within the next 5 years. The second document shows the process of ranking utilized for comparing these projects. And my last update is from Samtrans. They are hosting a coast-side specific virtual multilingual community meeting on May 5th that will run from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. This meeting, as well as a survey that I will include a link about, will be an opportunity for community members to provide feedback regarding bus routes along the coast. Those are all my updates, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks, Lena. Does anyone have any questions for Lena? If so, please go ahead and raise your hand using the tool in the Zoom meeting. So just for everyone, a refresh on where that is. If you're on desktop, it's at the Reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. Normally, sometimes it can be found under the participants list if you're on an older version of Zoom. If you're on the mobile app, it's under the More tab. And if you're dialing in by phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. So thank you very much, Lena. We'll move on. Do we have any other public officials who would like to make a comment? I see we have a couple people, Harvey and Bob from the city of Half Moon Bay.
Yes, indeed. Hi. I'll be brief. There was a meeting of Honda Indivisible to talk about policing, and I thought it was very useful. We heard from county officials, we heard from sheriff's officials, we heard from Caltrans, and that is leading into what the city of Half Moon Bay is going to be doing. We're going to have an update on the Yanira Serrano, I'll get it right yet, Yanira Serrano Presente program to talk about what the Latino community would like us to consider about policing. We're going to have a public community update about policing, a community workshop in preparation for city council discussion. So all of that has to do with what is becoming increasingly clear needs to be done about reforming or dealing with some of the police issues. So that's coming up. Our city manager, Bob Nisbet, who's on the call, met with Caltrans officials about the proposal to build signs along Highway 1 talking about emergencies. And it's an interesting proposal. The comment period for the environmental review is passed, but Bob is going to tell you what he learned in his talks to Caltrans. So take it away, Bob.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Rarbeck. Yeah, this is obviously something that both the city council and your body have been following. And both bodies, I think, have voiced similar concerns to Caltrans about both the function, the aesthetics, a multitude of things. And so, you know, usually it's best that we align ourselves and bring one voice to Caltrans on issues like this that cross this, you know, city and county line when we have similar views about it. So it's good to share information on how we're doing that. So as Councilmember Rarbeck said, we did have my city engineer and myself met with 5 Caltrans folks out in the field last Wednesday. And the purpose of that meeting was it did not seem that Caltrans was getting the message that the city council had conveyed to them. As you might recall, this project has come to our city council twice last year, I think once in October, once in November. And, you know, the council members had different opinions about it. Some liked it less than others, but initially were pretty united against it in general. Caltrans did come back and kind of indicated, hey, you know, can you give this one more thought, you know, before you completely discard it. And at that meeting, the second meeting, the council did give a kind of a variety of direction or at least guidance on what would move the needle for them in terms of changes that Caltrans made. So there was a bunch of things regarding aesthetics, but the main thing, the main kind of go, no go from the city council was the location of one of the signs in the city. And I think that might be an issue of the sign outside the city too. And that location, for those of you that aren't aware, was a sign that would be located right by the Ford dealership across from Seymour Avenue. And the council voiced that that location, for just many reasons, was not acceptable to the council. So as the project continued on, it didn't seem like Caltrans was really getting that message. So we kind of elevated it with them, and they agreed to meet us in the field. And the purpose of that meeting was to look at alternative locations. And so it was actually fairly successful, I would say, on that level. I think the project, you know, still has its opponents, clearly, but they agreed that, you know, if the city was really against that location, they wouldn't do it. So they found a location about a mile south, right south of Miramontes Road. And it's just about where the city limit line is. And we looked at it, and they acknowledged that they thought they could make it work there. And we acknowledged that that would be much preferred for our city council. Again, there's probably other details that still need to work out, but that was kind of the if you don't do this, the city just can't support this project. So that was movement, and all I'm doing is disclosing this to you guys more so that we just stay on the same facts and alignment on how we approach Caltrans. So there was movement there, and they're going to now go back to their designers and try to make that location work. And our council seemingly, they kind of drew the line in the sand and said, if you move the location, we'll be more open to it. So that's where that's at. They happened to mention to us at that field trip, and maybe you guys already know this, that they have done the same for the northerly sign. They have moved that location as well. Maybe you guys already know this. My understanding is they have moved that one further north. So it is closer to, I guess, the airport building, as opposed to across from the entrance to the subdivision there. So I was just passing that information along more than anything. And that's the purpose of the announcement, was just to keep you guys updated.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bob and Harvey. Yeah, that is accurate. They did, in response to one of our letters, they did move one of the signs to a more industrial area. I see a couple hands raised. I'm not sure if these are questions or comments separately. So Calix, did you have a question for one of the speakers so far, or were you going to make comments on behalf of the RCD outside of the agenda item?
I was going to make a comment outside the agenda items.
Okay, go for it.
I want just to let
I think you're cutting out. Is that just me, or is that
folks know that that the water quality, oh, can you hear me now?
We lost her.
Try
Silence.
again, Calix?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sounds better now.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I just wanted to let folks know that the water quality webinar, the Midcoast water quality webinar that we did last week, is now available on YouTube, the RCD's YouTube page. If anybody wants to watch that webinar and missed it, those who are registered have received the link. Otherwise, just go to YouTube and look for San Mateo RCD. And I also wanted to let you know that in regards to water quality, that Noah Katz, our water quality program manager, is going to be writing up still the responses to some of the questions that came up when he met with this group, and we'll send that to Michelle to share with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I attended that webinar and it was really informative. Thank you for that. Next, Michelle Dragony, did you have a question for the City of Half Moon Bay?
Yeah, I had a question for Bob regarding the VMS signs. The SMC alert system doesn't seem to be something that's on Caltrans awareness at the last MCC meeting. So I was wondering, I know Crystalline Geet of the Chamber has been talking to Caltrans as well. And I was just wondering if the SMC alert issue has been, is there actually a technological way that this can sync with the VMS on a reliable basis or not?
I don't know about the technology, but the staff that I met with, and by the way, this was the deputy director of our district, so someone fairly high up, they were aware of the SMC alert system.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Do we have any other government officials who would like to speak?
Sean McFetridge is here from the school district.
Oh, great. Yeah. Hi, Sean. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We'd love to hear your update.
That's great. So thanks, first of all, to Len for reaching out to me and inviting me today. This is our second week back to school in our hybrid model. We've done this in a phased way. First, we had grades K, transitional kindergarten, and first grade. Gosh, 3 weeks ago, along with sixth grade. And then 2 weeks ago, we added seventh grade and grades 3 and 4. And last week, we added grades 4 and 5, and grade 8, So we sort of phased it in. At the high school, they went backwards. 2 weeks ago, they started with grades 11 and 12, and then went from 9th and 10th grades. So this is the second week full back. By full, we mean at the elementary schools, there's AM, PM cohorts. Roughly half of the students come in the morning, half of the students come in the afternoon, with Wednesdays still being asynchronous or at home remote learning. At the middle school, at the intermediate, the CUNY Intermediate, they're still doing the same thing. AM cohort, about half of their students in the morning, half of their students in the afternoon, Wednesdays off. And at the high school, they're doing a Monday, Tuesday cohort and a Thursday, Friday cohort. And so at the elementary grades, all the students really are back, except for those who wanted to stay in remote learning in grades K, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's one remote learning teacher for those students. Most of the students are back in the elementary schools. About, I think, 75 students at CUNY Intermediate School opted to remain remote. And at the high school, it's a much greater number that opted to remain remote. But that's back, and it's been great to see kids on campus. Speaking of what I heard about sort of Highway 1 and traffic and transportation, I do want everyone to know that we worked with the county over the last year and developed an easement in front of El Granada Elementary School, where we will provide an easement to the county so that I think this summer they will be working on that multimodal trail to connect Half Moon Bay and El Granada. And there will be an easement that we will provide so they can build that bike and walking path. Was important for us to get an easement so that they could take responsibility of building it, taking the liability and the maintenance of it going forward. And there will be a fork that will connect to El Granada. So we're hoping that will help us with our biking and walking to school there. And it was great to work with the county on that. And then third, what Len had asked me to speak to in particular is sort of the status of modernization and use of bond dollars for El Granada Elementary School in Fair Lawn View. At the last board meeting, we presented, and we've done this several times, looking at the architects about what we could afford with the bond dollars. At the last board meeting, we did present a proposal to get rid of the worst portables on El Granada and build a new building there, and to address some of the concerns at the high school. One of the board members did ask us to bring back a discussion about Fair Lawn View, and I've spoken to our architects, and so we will try to bring back a discussion about what right sizing of that would look like and what an option would be and what the trade-offs would be, considering the limited amount of bond dollars that we have. As people may or may not know, we had demographers reports done this last year, and we have declining enrollment in the district, and it is anticipated that there will be fewer than 250 students at Fair Lawn View in the next 5 years, and the numbers at El Granada are staying pretty stable. Hatch Elementary will see some drop in numbers, and the middle school and the high school will start to see drops in numbers. So what you're having is this bubble in the middle and the high school years right now, and there's been fewer births, live births, and generation of kids. They call it SGR, student generation rate of all things. Anyway, so I think the pandemic has led to a baby bust also. So I think we're going to see fewer and fewer students on the coast side. And so that's a chance for us to sort of look at the different school campuses and try to right size and build the schools that are needed for the future. By our enrollment projections, because our demographer shows that there's not a lot of housing being built, and a lot of the families, their kids have aged out, gotten to middle school and high school. So there's not a lot of replacement, if you will. So in June, we will present to the board. We'll put out an RFP, a request for RFQ, request for qualifications for architects, so we can start the work at Half Moon Bay High School and at El Granada that's already been approved. And I will ask the architects to bring back another sort of right-sized option for a smaller modernization effort at Fair Lawn View for their consideration. And that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sean, for that update. It looks like Jill Grant has a question.
Yes, I do. Hi, Sean. Thanks for coming tonight. I have a daughter at Half Moon Bay High School, and we love Principal Nazar and we love your work too. I was just wondering if there was any chance that the school would continue using this hybrid model even after COVID. It seems like quite a few students enjoy it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, whenever we talk about this, we talk about how every crisis could be viewed as an opportunity. And there are a lot of people across the United States, in the state of California, in the county, that are sort of looking at this. It is the case that the state of California is sort of pushing to get people back on campus. What we've seen is that we've been able to do reading intervention, for example, remotely. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to do more intervention work remotely for kids. As far as offering at the high school or at the middle school, the problem that you have, of course, is that when we had the pandemic, or we still are in the pandemic, and you had to go to remote, you could sort of get your resources focused on that and do that. As we get more kids on campus, we find that we don't have the resources to operate both systems. So what we're investigating now, what most districts in the county and this are looking at right now, is an option for independent study. There's actually been 3 modalities of learning that are operating currently. There is the in-person, there is the remote, and then there's independent study for those who didn't want to interact by Zoom every day. I think most districts will wind up going, because of the way the state is funding this, full in-person or independent study. So we are looking at whether or not independent study could continue, but at the high school in particular, because of the way that people are certificated and what they can certificate to teach, it would probably be a very tall order to run both systems.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a somewhat related question and then an unrelated question to what Jill just asked. Related in terms of next year, have you guys decided whether next year will still be the hybrid model or whether it will go back to full in-person?
No, I'm glad you're asking that. The Opening School Steering Committee, which represents a parent guardian representative from every school and staff members from every school, or at least representatives from our bargaining units, our unions, have been meeting, all year long to finally get us to this place for the recommendation for reopening this last month. We are not currently negotiating an MOU for next year for hybrid learning, because with the governor's announcement that he sees the tier system going away and he expects that business will be back to normal June 15th. And I just was reading the data today in Cal Matters about how California is sort of like showing really low levels. We did think maybe we'd go to yellow next week, but it looks like that's not going to happen. But really the assumption is that we would not have hybrid learning next year. And the thing that creates the hybrid learning for us right now, of course, is the 6-foot distance. The Center for Disease Control probably, a month ago, said that the 6-foot distance is no longer required. And then the California Department of Public Health, at the governor's urging, sort of said 3-foot distancing. And then the San Mateo Department of Public Health followed suit and said that, maybe 3 weekends ago. So with 3 feet of distance between students, we really think that we'll be able to get every student back on campus in their class. It works particularly well for grades K-3, where the class size is 24 to 1, 24 students to 1 teacher. At grades 4-5, it could be a little difficult, and we might staff that a little bit more. This year, we decided not to cut teachers or sort of let go of teachers this year so that we could be overstaffed. We erred on the side of overstaffing, knowing that we might need to have smaller class size. At the high school and the middle school, because of the nature of how those are, it's very unlikely they'll ever be at their 35 to 1, but even so, looking at those size classrooms, you might be able to get kids 3 feet distanced. The difference will be that, as we're being told currently, is that you can still expect that adults would have to be 6-foot distance, and that in a dining setup, you would have to have 6 feet distance for kids because they'll take their masks off. So no, in the fall, we do not see a hybrid. We see a return to a school schedule, and we hope to have that be from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, and not have this AM, PM cohort, not have Wednesdays off for asynchronous remote instruction. We are hoping to get back to normal-ish with masks and distancing for adults and extra lunch accommodations to make sure that kids could be 6 foot distance for lunch.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm sure a lot of students and families will be very happy that it'll be back, hopefully, and full in person next year. My other question was just on the status, kind of related to what you were talking about with improvements and using the bond funding. Are Farallon View and El Granada Elementary School up to current standards in terms of earthquake preparedness?
Yeah, I know that Greg, I see Greg there. And Greg, you had this Game of Thrones background, and now there's another fantasy background behind you. So I've just got to, that's the tree, right? Anyways, go Game of Thrones. So Greg had actually reached out to us, and I think he spoke to our chief business officer. We are currently looking at, we have an analyst that you have to hire to look at state funding. The district has not been eligible for state funding for replacement of old portable buildings for some time. This earthquake dollars, I know that Jesus Contreras, our chief business officer, and I talked to Len about that. And Greg, I think I emailed back to you. We're all ears. We do not know of any seismic risks on our campus currently. But if we were eligible for any of those dollars, make no mistake of it, we'd like to have that. Our current analyst is trying to sort of chase after what could be as much as 10 or more millions of dollars to replace some of our older facilities, and especially those portables that have been on Farallon View and El Granada for far too long, and they're past their usable life. So we are looking at state funding, but we are all ears if there is earthquake dollars. We did not know, as understood from Greg's email, that we might be eligible for that, but we were not aware of the opportunity. Nobody had contacted us about it. So if there is a conduit, we would like to explore that, and we'd love to get the money if it's available.
Great, thank you. And yes, what you're referring to is the local hazard mitigation plan. We will be talking about that a little bit later under agenda item 4B. If there are not any other questions for Sean, thank you, Sean, for coming to our meeting. Let's do it again soon.
Well, have a good night. Thanks always for inviting me. It's been too long, but I'm glad to see you guys.
Great. Any other government officials who would like to speak tonight? Okay, let's move on to public comment. Now, this is public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. We have 3 regular items on tonight's agenda: the wildfire preparedness issue, local hazard mitigation plan, and then a re-election of our secretary and treasurer. So if you'd like to speak on something other than those topics, or if council members would like to make an announcement, this is the time to do so. Steve Terry, you had your hand up first. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi.
3 minutes. Hi.
I think Chairman Wheel and the members of Midcoast Council. So this is public comment off the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. My comments are regarding the exterior lighting at the new El Granada Fire Station, as you might have guessed. The San Mateo County Planning Department came up with a series of changes to the exterior lighting, the details of which they have sent out. And I believe you've received a copy of that. For the most part, these changes consist simply of dimming the existing lights. Notably, the changes do not meet what you asked for in your letter that you sent them. I think that was March 30. Also, the changes have already been started. So your request to review the changes before they began any modifications was blatantly ignored. Furthermore, as you may have noticed, the proposed changes are neither designed nor intended to meet the conditions of approval in the 2017 letter of decision on the project, specifically light trespass off the property. But there are also LCP sections that are in violation by the current lighting, section 18.8, for example. So that should also be investigated. Additionally, the fire district claims that the excessive and unshielded light is needed for safety. However, a review of the lighting industry's literature is clear that more light is not safer, but better light is safer. The industry makes a point that light trespass is generally less safe due to glare, as it compromises human vision. Now, this is especially a concern along the narrow Obispo Road adjacent to the fire station, where there may be people walking along the road or skateboarding or bicycling or who knows what, and some cars may not see them. The BLD for this project is not final, so I think it's important for the MCC to stay fully engaged on this issue. As such, I believe the issue should stay on your agenda. I would also encourage you to invite someone from the County Planning Department at your next meeting to discuss the conditions of approval along with other issues you highlighted in your letter, including intent, which may be lacking. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Steve, for that comment. Next, Dan Haggerty, you have an announcement?
Yes. After listening to myself at the last meeting, I fully realized that nobody in the community wants to hear how I was, interrupting. I just, it was a tough meeting. And, I believe many people were very frustrated as I was. It was very difficult to take when you feel like it was being railroaded, with some ambiguous and incomplete answers. The community was looking for certain information. But all that, I realized that it didn't make the meeting pleasurable to attend. And I do not want to be a part of that happening. So, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate you saying that. Next, Clara, you have an announcement?
Yes, I was asked to let people know that they're continuing to do COVID testing in Half Moon Bay on Monday afternoons. And I was especially asked to do this because apparently they are not getting very many people coming in, and they would like to have people coming in. This is a county-sponsored thing because this is one way of lowering our effective case rate for the county and being able to move up. And it's also a way of monitoring for what strains are in the community. So they are testing the genetic component of the positive test. So those are two reasons why, if there's any need for getting testing, this would be a good thing to do. And you can sign up on the HMB City website.
Thanks for that, Claire. It's interesting because I was looking for local testing last week on Monday, and I saw that testing. That's the one at the Ted Adcock Center, I think, from 3 to 6 on Mondays.
Yeah, right.
And it looked like when I went to sign up online, it looked like both that week and the following week were totally booked. So not sure if there's an issue with the online booking system, but it's good to know there are appointments available. Do you know if walk-ups are accepted at that location?
I don't. I don't know if any of the Half Moon Bay people are still online.
Yeah.
They do accept walk-ups, subject to availability.
They will take walk-ups, but they prefer reservations.
Okay. All right. We'll look into that then, make sure that the booking is working. Next, let's go to Greg Diegues.
Hi, I have a word for the community, and I'm not sure what protocol to follow here. The word is flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted at the level of intelligence, insight, initiative, and involvement in our community. I began my involvement in the community in Montero with issues regarding the water agency, and then I met people involved with resist density and Midcoast Echo in Moss Beach. And then I met folks in Miramar in connection with the Medio Bridge. And most recently, I have made a lot of new friends in El Granada. And I just want to say I am honored to represent you all on matters that are important to us all. On a procedural matter, I want you all to be aware that your chat comments are in a log, which is visible after the meeting, even ones between two people. Finally, if you wish to bring a matter to the MCC's attention, please do not just email me. I mean, if it's a question or it's a formation of a thought process, that's fine. But if it's something you want the entire council to be aware of, because of the Brown Act, I can't forward emails to other council members unless they're on a subcommittee, but to the entire council, I can't do it. So please email the Midcoast Community Council email address that I'm going to put in the chat for anything that you want us to all be aware of. Finally, I hope you won't get discouraged and will maintain your involvement as we work together on our many Midcoast issues. I'm just so impressed with the people I've met and the initiative that they're taking. Thank you all.
Thank you, Greg. And then Kimberly Williams. You can go ahead and speak your 3 minutes.
I don't have a great connection, so I hope it will work.
Okay, sounds good now.
I want to voice concerns about 2 things. The previous person who mentioned the lighting at the fire station, I also share those concerns, and I just want to agree with that person that spoke up. The other thing I'd like to express following Bob Nisbet's comments is that I continue to oppose and am concerned about the Caltrans signage, the proposal for large electronic signs that they're proposing to install. And at the last public meeting of Caltrans, there were no comments from the community in support of this project. Caltrans was clear that these signs will serve the purpose that Caltrans wants them to serve, and that they will not guarantee the signs will always conform to the MCC's requests previously. They were also candid that this project was not contingent on local approval, although it would be preferable to have. The sign moved to the roadside near the airport is still in a scenic rural area, and I would not consider it industrial, as it was referred to earlier. Birders routinely watch birds, especially owls and other raptors there. The signs will severely impact our rural character and the beauty of the landscape. And our need for an emergency plan is not solved by having these signs. And that was also made clear, that that would not be something that these signs would necessarily be oriented to, or that this would help with. And the last point I'd like to make is that having these signs will mean that motorists are further desensitized, or will be more insensitive to the landscape and the roadway by having them there, and it will, and you know, we don't need more insensitivity to our place, and I think that road signs like that tend to do that. It makes people insensitive to the place, it clutters the landscape, and it mars the beauty of the place that we call home. So thank you for listening to my comments, and I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly, for that. Next, we'll go to Jill Grant.
Thank you, Michelle. I just wanted to say that one of the complaints from the fire district and some members of the county regarding the lighting at the fire station is that there was only one complaint, and that is because there's only one person who submitted a code violation, that's Steve Terry. So they consider it only one complaint, even though we've had multiple people complain to the MCC. Thanks.
Oh, thank you for that, Jill. Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Next, Dan Haggerty.
I just want to quickly alert the community that there was a deer on the side of the road. You know, I guess it was near Murata West. You don't see, well, at least I haven't. I don't know, maybe others have, but it's been a long time. I just thought I'd mention it. You know, driving at night, be a little more careful. I don't know. I just thought I'd mention it because I saw it. It was the first time I've seen a deer in this area in quite a while. We used to see them up around the Devil's Slide. And then also just real quick, you know, we're talking about signs, and, you know, we're just seeing more and more of these Caltrans rented signs up for this reason or that reason. And I just wanted to touch on that. Hopefully we could talk about that, maybe get that agendized sometime. We could talk further about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for that. Okay. I don't see any other hands raised, so we're going to move on. Public comment is now closed. Next is the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda tonight, which is the minutes from the last meeting, the April 14th meeting. Just a note, we do have still several outstanding meeting minutes from previously, earlier in the year. If the election goes as planned tonight, Dave will be taking that on as the new secretary, and he will be finishing those up hopefully by the next meeting. Is that what you think, Dave? Okay, you're on mute, but I see a yes.
Yes, I will be trying very hard.
Okay, yeah, I know. It's a lot of work. I understand that. Jill, did you have something on the consent agenda, or was your hand just still raised from earlier?
I want to move the minutes from the consent to discussion because I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. If any one member of the council wants to remove an item from the consent agenda, then that is what will happen. So we will revisit that item after regular agenda item 4C. Thank you. Okay. So on to the regular agenda. Our first item tonight is a follow-up on last week's, or 2 weeks ago, wildfire presentation. Tonight we're going to talk about, we're going to actually hopefully hear from Kellex. I know she had to run pretty quickly, so that I want to get to her. We're going to hear from her first with a follow-up, and then Len is going to share a couple updates that he's made, and then at the end we'll talk about some potential options that we can pursue going forward. And I have a document posted on the website that we will look at that point. So let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to Len, and then we can hand it right over to Kellex. Len, did you want to make an intro, or should we just have Kellex kick it off?
We can do the intro. Michelle, just introduce.
Yeah, okay. Kellex, we're happy to have you back. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good to see many of you, and others that I know are there, but I don't see you. I said at the last meeting that I would come back with some updates, so just wanted to give you those updates. There are three. One is that today at 5 p.m. a grant application was due to the Coastal Conservancy that we had been working on. I thought I would just fill you in about that. The Coastal Conservancy's Forest Health and Wildfire Resilience Program has about $12 million in grants for ready to implement projects that reduce the risk of wildfire on public lands. Planning projects were not eligible for the funding. It had to be ready. Projects had to be ready to start work no later than August of this year, and had to have CEQA already completed. So that narrowed the window if possible. So we partnered with county parks for some fuel load management at Quarry Park. We applied for, I think it was about $1.2 million for what was somewhat ready to go, a two-phase project. And they also had to meet the goals of California's Wildfire and Forest Resilience Action Plan. So what we proposed was for work in Quarry Park that had two elements to it. One is a shaded fuel break along existing fire roads within Quarry Park. That basically means strategically removing some of the smaller understory trees. And this would be strategically doing it to satisfy CAL FIRE's minimum clearance requirement for emergency access roads so that first responders can access a fire and do fire containment and suppression activities. And then the second task that we proposed was a 200-foot wide, 12-acre fuel break along the western boundary. That would disturb fire behavior, disrupt fire behavior, slowing spread, and also creating a safe space for first responders to conduct fire containment and suppression activities. So that was one update I wanted to give you. The second update is And I'd be happy to answer questions about this to the extent that I can in a moment. I didn't prepare this grant application. Sheena on our staff did with county parks. The second update is that soon you'll be receiving from the RCD, the RCDs of Santa Cruz and San Mateo counties have been working with the Coastal Commission on a new innovative approach to programmatically getting coastal development permits for large scale fuel load reduction projects. We've been working on this for a couple of years now, and we're going to be publicly noticing it. We're going to use in statute, there's something that exists that's a public works plan, but this is, I believe, the first time a public works plan has been used for this type of project. So it's been a lot of back and forth to figure this out. And it would enable us to access the state's EIR, so the environmental impact report that was prepared by the state for forest management and fuel load reduction projects. By tying those together, in the areas of the state that are covered by that EIR, that means that we would have CEQA done and coastal development permits essentially in place to be able to respond quickly to opportunities. So this is a lot of what we've been working on for a while, is getting these things lined up so that we can take advantage of the kinds of opportunities like that funding that suddenly shows up, you have 2 weeks and CEQA needs to already be done. And so then the third thing that we're working on that Len really initiated, at least the conversation with me, and that is in the agenda, is working with Panorama, this consulting firm. I would maybe characterize it a tad differently from the way it shows up in your agenda, because the agenda indicates that they're confining their scope to Quarry Park, but it's actually the project area is about reducing fuel risk in the Midcoast and El Granada area from eucalyptus. So they're not limited to only looking at opportunities in Quarry Park. And so that is Midcoast Parklands being willing to allocate some funds to Panorama to be able to essentially scope out what would be the next steps to identify and develop the suite of possible projects that can address different priorities, basically, and strategically position high priority work for funding as it becomes available. And I consider them like a suite of options rather than alternatives, because I'm all about being ready to take advantage of any opportunity, not like comparing this to that and one has to win, but understanding like what are the different options that are available, but still address the priority opportunities. And then, Len can probably speak more to that, or is going to speak more to that. And then Lena from Supervisor Horsley's office and I have been in conversation about that too, seeing if, whether or not there may end up being a good fit for the county to match that. I think first we have to see what the scope of work is. And I also just really want to manage expectations about what this means. So this is not developing a project or doing a project. This is identifying what the next steps, the critical path is to be able to develop those projects. So like what's needed? Do we need to do some like fire modeling? Do we need to do like what vegetation mapping exists? Like what are the pieces that are already there? What are the gaps that would need to be filled to take it to the next level of developing the priority projects for implementation? That's it.
Okay. So before I speak, Kellex, people may have specific questions to you. So why don't you, Michelle, see if there are questions for Kellex?
Yeah, just because I know Kellex has to run, I would like to take any questions for her now. Does anyone have any questions about anything that Kellex just mentioned? Okay, lots of hands all of a sudden. Let's start with, please use the function on your screen to raise your hand. It should be under the reactions tab at the bottom. I'm going to start with the order of the questions received. So starting with Greg Dieguez.
Kellex, thanks. I just wanted to understand the grant funding you were describing. Is that for the 3 already identified projects in NICS, $18 million? Is that to fund those existing projects, or were those grants for something new?
The grant doesn't say whether it's existing or new, but it says that it has to be shovel ready and have CEQA done. It has to be something that you can implement starting in August. So what we proposed was something that had multiple phases. The first phase being building on what the county already has in place and has already done CEQA for and already has permits for. So building on their existing work. And the second phase would be addressing a section of the western boundary.
So the answer is no, it's not something new. It's just funding for previously defined efforts.
Well, the funding doesn't matter whether it's previously, the funding is not tied to whether it's pre-existing or not.
Okay.
Deputy Attorney General, but I'm a state official of the Justice Department. Not having that kind of energy from the Justice Department.
Okay, thank you for that. Jill Grant.
Thank you, Kellex. That was wonderful. I'm very excited about all of that. Can you tell us how the public can comment on the programmatic document you're preparing and when that will happen?
So I'm going to be sending something out to a pretty big distribution list sometime in the next week. If not by the end of this week, then early next week. I'll be sending it to the Midcoast Community Council and to other fora. We'll be putting it in the Half Moon Bay Review. We'll be putting it on the RCD's website. We'll be putting it on our social media. We'll be sending it to special districts. We'll, we're going to try and send it far and wide.
Okay, and then how long will the comment period be? 30 days or
I'm sorry, Jill, I can't remember. I can't remember. It's probably something like that. It'll be in what I send out, but I can't remember. Sorry about that.
Okay, next, Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, thank you, Kellex. Thank you very much for presenting. Just for the record, I don't feel that you personally were any part of the railroading, but I do want to say, and I know, I think it's some of these. It starts to get confusing at some level because there's CAL FIRE, there's Parks, and everybody says something. It's hard to kind of piece everything together. It's almost like there needs to be a flow chart of information, how the funding get, and when you mentioned shovel ready, I was talking to Nick I think it was last Monday. He's not working towards any plans to be shovel ready. So it just, you probably get that that's frustrating that, if we have an opportunity and we miss a grant because we're not ready for it, it hasn't been planned out. That's part of the frustration. But you mentioned something about.
Wait, Dan. Before you get to the next thing, may I address that? So, the work with Panorama Consulting is to start getting to that point that you're talking about. That's to start developing a plan.
That sounds positive. Thank you.
You can thank Midcoast Parks for that.
Oh, awesome! Cool. I'm feeling better. Now on the underbrush, and I think you also said invasive species. One of the things that was really difficult, and I just never got a clear answer, obviously there is some eucalyptus sprouts, but he wouldn't call them, Nicholas would not call them eucalyptus sprouts. He would just call it invasive species, meaning that there's more than one. So I just don't know. Can you tell us what invasive species? Is he talking, how many?
Well, I don't know which thing you're referencing that Nicholas said, but when I can tell you what I mean. So with the project that we're talking about, we would be inclined, if possible, to remove all invasive species from the project area if the funding allowed for that. There's different types of funding that enable different things and different amounts of funding. So if I had unlimited funds, I would get rid of all invasives there, eucalyptus, broom, all of it, and have a really high functioning chaparral habitat. With limited funds, I might do just shaded fuel break and increase the ability for CAL FIRE to respond. To disrupt fire pattern and increase the ability to respond and increase the ability for people to get out. If I had more money than that, I would do more of that. With limited funds, I might do just shaded fuel break and increase the ability for CAL FIRE to respond to disrupt fire pattern and increase the ability to respond and increase the ability for people to get out. If I had more money than that, I would do more of that. If I had more money than that, I would do more of that. The other thing is that they're like whether you're addressing all invasives or just eucalyptus can also have to do with whether the funding is tied only to safety or to forest health.
Right, but I'm specifically asking for what he's planning on. I mean, we're still waiting for the funding, so we don't know what he's going to be, which invasive species he's going to be, concerned with.
So right now, the project at hand, the project that's the one that's has a likelihood of happening is the one that I just described to you. And so, so what Nicholas did was a high level analysis across all county parks. The stuff that you were frustrated about last time, I think he was trying to describe where Quarry Park fit into context. And no, he doesn't have a specific plan down to individual plants for every park or potential project. But what he is doing is partnering with the RCD because he knows that he has an interest in Quarry Park. He knows that we have an interest in Quarry Park. He knows the community has an interest in Quarry Park. And so he's not going down literally to the weed in each park or each project, but he has given us the ability to work with Hannah, his natural resource manager, to develop the right scope project for this funding source. Parallel process with that is what Len was talking about, which is to start developing more of the kind of plan that I think you're talking about, Dan. But we didn't want to wait for the perfect plan. When there's some things that are so obvious that we know we should do, let's jump on the opportunity. And we can walk and chew gum, right? We can like do some of these valuable projects while looking at opportunities to develop a plan, particularly since planning money is often so limited.
And separate from any work there, is there any list of the known invasive species that are already at Quarry Park? Because I still have not got the answer. What different types of invasive species are the concern?
So are there a list of invasive species at Quarry Park? I don't know the last time that biological assessment has been done at Quarry Park. I see a lot of eucalyptus, I see a lot of broom, I see a lot of Cape ivy, but there are lists of invasive species in San Mateo County and particular concerns in coastal San Mateo County.
Okay, thank you.
And those are available both through the county's weed management area and the California Invasive Plant Council.
Thank you, Calix. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, for those questions. Next, we'll go to Danny Terwi. Danny, if you'd like to ask Calix a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
Good evening. Private property owner, we just got a permit approved for a few different adjacent neighborhoods or a few different adjacent plots on El Granada Boulevard. You mentioned the grant application for $12 million to reduce the risk of wildfire on public lands. I just wanted to make sure that the scope wouldn't possibly include private properties adjacent to those public lands. And just as a follow-up question, does the RCD have the capacity to assist with grant writing on adjacent private land? For instance, the SFA grants that are coming up in the next few weeks.
So in response to the first question, Dan, it wasn't that we applied for a grant for 12 million. It's that the state's program has 12 million total for the state, and their program is restricted to public and conservation lands. So we could only apply for a project that fit into that eligibility requirement. And to be competitive, since there were only 12 million statewide, we only proposed something that was 1.2 million. I think it was 1.2. I might have that number wrong. Regarding your second question, yes, the RCD regularly, the majority of our work is on private lands, and we regularly partner with private landowners to apply for grants, particularly because typically private landowners aren't eligible as an entity for a lot of these sort of state funding sources. You have to be a nonprofit or a form of government or a tribe often. typically. So we often help connect people to those financial resources and work with them. Whether we can respond to all of those requests right now is unlikely because we just have limited staffing, right? And so we've got multiple projects moving forward right now, but we're still interested, and if and when we can, that is very much in our wheelhouse to do.
Does it help to have homeowners who are capable of doing the writing themselves?
Yeah, it can. And sometimes we partner that way. Sometimes there's so many different ways that we can partner. It's one of the things I love about RCDs, frankly, is how nimble we are in the ways that we can work across public and private lands. So yes, it can help. It kind of depends on when the funds might come online and whether we have bandwidth during that time. And we would have to administratively host the grant, and we have public audits. Like there's some investment, even if people write it. But sometimes the writing is a critical path or a hoop to jump through, and that's helpful. But just, call us, invite us, let's talk.
Thanks.
Great. Next, Graham. Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, I should be. Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Right, right. It's great to hear this, Calix, that you're applying for these funds. You say you're going to be publishing this information shortly. Will that include maps? Because I know, over the years we've heard lots about things that are going to be done in Quarry Park, and then some of us, particularly those of us up at the upper part of El Granada Boulevard, have been disappointed to find that although we consider ourselves very high risk, we're not part of the solutions that are being proposed. So hopefully there's going to be a map in there which will show which areas are being planned to be worked on.
Well, there's 3 different things that I talked about tonight. And the one that I talked about that we're going to be distributing for comment is a public works plan for a programmatic coastal development permit to be able to do projects in the coastal zone. It's not for a project at Quarry Park. And so this is more precedent setting for this concept of being able to programmatically permit this kind of work. Is not a small endeavor, but it's not a project that's going to happen in Quarry Park. But I think you might be interested in seeing if.
Right, I thought you were talking about a project on the western boundary, which is, yeah.
Second thing is a grant we're applying for to do some work. We don't know if it will be funded, and we don't know if the project will happen. And no, there's not going to be public comment on that. It was due at 5 p.m. today. It was a very, very, very short turnaround, and we had to scramble to get something in. And that's part of the reason that we wanted to build on things that were existing work. But don't consider that the last or only opportunity, but we just didn't want to miss the opportunity. Then the third thing, where I would assume that there would be, public engagement, is if we get to a point where there's scoping projects in the area. So the one with Panorama Consulting that Len can speak to as well is not going to be identifying projects. It's going to say what are the steps that are needed to identify these projects. I would assume that includes, mapping of vegetation or assessing previously mapped vegetation, wildfire modeling, community engagement, mapping. I would assume it's those kinds of tasks. So yes, some of these things I would imagine, have to and ought to involve the community, but not for the grant that we've submitted, not for scoping out what needs to be done. And yes, for the public works plan, but it's not a project for Quarry Park.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next will be Fran Pollard. Fran, please go ahead and unmute yourself, and then you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, yes, Fran Pollard, El Granada, and I am on part of the MPL group, Midcoast Parklands. Have always been for 20 years now or more, 30. And also, I'm on the park committee for Granada's Community Services District. And we met last night. Was it last night? 2 nights ago. And discussed inviting the community to come and help with some prevention work. And I was wondering if that could be done with you, Kellex. Thank you for all you're doing there. And we planned, we're talking about doing a work day for cleanup in Quarry Park, things that we as a community could do, call a community work day. And is that something you could work with us on? I have to call the county too and find out if that's okay with them. But would that be something you could work with, or your group?
You know, possibly, Fran. I don't know. I'm hesitant to sign Sheena up for more. Sheena and her team. They're just pedal to the metal. One of the things we have in our strategic plan is less burnout for staff. So it really depends on what their workload is. But we could connect and see if that's something that they can provide support around.
And another thing is the road, the fire break you talked about on the west side, I guess was supposed to go from El Granada Boulevard all the way around to Murata Surf East, and the 200-foot break, which is adjacent to the entire community. So that would be helpful. And that would, but, Governor Newsom is getting lots of money from the federal government, and he's distributing it to the counties. And I've been saying, I hope that they'll use that to do some of these things. And I was hoping that the rhetoric could be changed, or the title from fire preparedness to fire prevention. And something like that would help, would be a step in preventing. And if we can have a work day and clean up a lot of the lower stuff, that would help. And we need to do it this spring, or, maybe by June, and get it done before the fire season. Because I'd hate to see another community burned up. And there's just so much dry wood all over the place, and trees all over the place, down below, up on top, everywhere, all the tall trees. And all it takes is the embers to go, as we've watched other communities burn from tree to tree to tree. So I'm hoping everybody gets on board and start insisting that they do fire prevention. Start calling it that, and that we want it, and speak up every time you can.
Thanks, Fran. Your 3 minutes is up, but we can let Kellex respond if you had anything else to say about that.
What I would say about that is, remember that every community is saying exactly what you guys are. And I'm not saying that to give you any brush off. I'm saying that to just a reality check about what is involved. Every community, like in this county, is asking for that. Every community in other counties, all the counties across the state. And yes, there's some funds coming down. There's so many demands on those funds before the bill is even completed being written. So when I mentioned last time I talked to you guys, I want to help you be really effective advocates. And I think one of the things that's really effective is what you guys are doing with Midcoast Parklands, which is allocating resources to move the dial. So not just saying we want, but also saying we're offering. We're gonna. What is it that you need to get to the next step? You need some planning. We'll help advance the planning. I think that's a very effective tool.
Great, thank you. Next, Dan Haggerty, you have another question for Kellex?
Yes, thank you, Kellex. You've been doing a great job. I really appreciate it. Maps came up earlier. I think Graham brought that up. I would I know that you may not be responsible. I just want to say it publicly. And if you have any say in the matter, and any maps that will come in the future to the community so that we can understand exactly what areas you're talking about, please do not take a highlighter and go over Google Maps and just put a line through a bunch of trees. I don't know what trail that is. For us to get up into that mountain, it takes, it takes a lot. It takes a long time, an hour hike to really kind of get around and to take a look at this. So I'm just requesting, please, some detailed, reasonable maps, whether it's a copy of a trail map that can be eventually printed, and walk through the park with a map to hold in our hand, because I don't want to get lost. I want to go up there one time and see everything. So thank you for listening. That's my request is to, when there is a map done, please have some details so that someone can hike through and see what we're talking about. Thank you.
So I hear what you're saying, Dan, and I'm thinking about whether that's a need that we'll be able to meet regularly, because generally when we generate these maps, it's for a specific a specific grant, and what the funders are looking for in the map might not be what you're looking for. And, I'm not sure that we'll be able to do that all the time. I'm trying to think about how we can.
Maybe I can, try to make it a little easier. The areas of concern, now, so that what areas are concerned, and then whatever comes up available, you fit that piece of,
I see what you're talking about. So yeah, I think that's,
so at least we know, what are we talking? Because it's like chasing the mouse.
I think what you're talking about doesn't exist yet, and is the kind of product that I would expect to come out of the process that we're talking about with panoramic sultans.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let's actually hear a little bit more. I think, Len, were you going to share some more information on that next?
Yes.
Okay, so I think Kellex has to run. So now I don't see any additional hands raised. I want to thank you, Kellex.
I'm sorry. Can I just one more quick? I apologize, Kellex, if you've already said this, but I understand Coastal Conservancy has some grant opportunities, and it's on your radar, right?
The grant that we applied for today is Coastal Conservancy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thanks again, Kellex. We'll let you go.
Michelle, may I ask one quick question again?
That's up to Kellex, I guess.
Or Kelly, can I? Kellex.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's not a question, it's a statement. I don't mean to pit one community against another, but I'm just thinking that I would hope that the county, the state, that take into consideration the most densely populated communities ought to get top priority for this, that are in a wooded area, rather than out in the woods where there's hardly anybody living. I'm worried about life and property.
I would be careful about taking a really strong position on that, because if that's the case, all the money would go to the community around San Bruno Mountain.
Well, I don't think so. We need to share it among the densest populations, but not in the woods where there's only a couple dozen houses or something like that. That's not right. There's 6,000 or 7,000 people here in this community that would be homeless if something happened here again. I don't think we want that. So
the state has, Fran, the state has, I referenced when I was talking about the grant that we applied for, the California wildfire such and such plan. So the state's priorities for how they manage this resource, and which includes healthy forests for carbon sequestration and includes risk and fire. The state is balancing multiple objectives, I think the place to engage, the county isn't going to be making those decisions. County government is not going to make those decisions about how the state prioritizes statewide. The county is advocating, they've got a lobbyist, they're advocating to get some of that money for their constituents. So the place to engage around that is with like the Board of Forestry or the governor's Forest Health Task Force or those kinds of things. There are plans that exist for that. And one of the things is, one of the big drivers for the state is about public safety. Another big driver is the huge climate impact, the huge emissions that come out of catastrophic wildfires. And a lot of those really huge emissions come in big tracts of forested land. So what's going to make us successful is strategically positioning this project to meet the existing state objectives and priorities. I think at this point, telling the state they should do it differently, we probably don't have the political capital to change those existing plans. When there are opportunities to really engage, I'll be sure to let you guys know if I know about them. But right now, the best strategy that we have is what I think is moving forward, which is try to strategically position the projects that you want to get done for the funding pools that are coming down and the existing state priorities. And I can help you do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Calix. We appreciate your support so much. And I'm sure we'll continue to be in touch. Thank you. All right, next we're going to go to Len. Len has been doing a lot of work on the study that Calix referred to. So Len, I'm going to turn it over to you to share that information with the council and the constituents.
Thank you. And again to Calix, thank you for coming here and the time you spent talking to me about this area. After the last MCC meeting, when we discussed wildfire preparedness, one of the things that struck me was we're looking at a very large problem and a very complex problem, and you need long-range solutions that are specific and well-grounded. So thinking about that, I got together with the people of Midcoast Parklands. This is just a quick note. For many years before the county acquired Quarry Park as part of the park system, there was an operating group called Midcoast Parklands that handled the operations, liability insurance, et cetera, with some support from the county as well. And to do that, they had to provide payment for the liability insurance, which was a major fundraising task. So they continued to do and support it that way. When the park went over to the county, funds were remaining. We had looked for things to use to spend it as we wound down that organization, but never found something that was exactly right. So after the last MCC meeting, I got the group together and I said, I felt that the funds we have, it's on the order, it's not huge. It's on the order of $9,000, but those are really the funds of the community, the money the community contributed to keep Quarry Park operating. And that could form the basis of an effort to really try to look at something in a specific but longer range way. And along the way, I've also, from the Fire Safe Council meetings that occur and other things, a group called Panorama Environmental. Now, I'll just say a few brief things about it, but we will post a link with further information about this group on the website. But basically, if you look at projects they've done over the past several years, they have basically represented the wildfire planning for MROSD. I think we all know who that group is. And furthermore, I asked Zoe Kirsten Tucker, who is the director who represents our area, were they doing good work? And she said, very good work. They spent several years up in San Francisco working with the county and the eucalyptus forest behind it, which is the concern of people up there, just as Quarry Park is our concern, in a multi-year, multi-stage effort. So they're quite acquainted with both broad-scale planning like you would have to do for MROSD, as well as working with communities on very intensive projects with a eucalyptus forest involved. And there are other projects as well. So I'll put that up. I went to, with that in hand, I went to Calix, and first I asked somewhat, as we do here, here's some really specific things that aren't just the fire protection and the fire breaks we'd like longer term efforts in certain areas. And one of the things we were trying to emphasize as well is we didn't want the boundary to be the park boundary. Eucalyptus are throughout El Granada, so we run eucalyptus in the entire community, parks, residents, etc. And in looking at that, we then met with Kellex, and both Kellex and Tanya Trice, as the principal of environmental, said, well, specific needs are good, but you really have to step back and really take a good overall picture. They felt they and the groups they work with have the tools to do that. So we begin to discuss how to frame that. Along the way, we recognize also that we were just talking about our small amount as a starter. We've reached out to the county to see if they'll join that effort. And Lena will speak a few words about that after I finish. The bottom line coming out of that conversation is they were interested in doing that to come together. So what I expect from them over the next 2 weeks is a conversation to be more specific so that 2 weeks hence, I can come back to the MCC with a request for a letter of support and more particulars about what's being proposed. But I think you can see from the comments that Kellex made from time to time that really is trying to make a serious look at the long-term picture and specifics for eucalyptus in Quarry Park. I do want, Lena, are you here?
I am, although I think Dan may have a question. I don't know if you want.
He does. Just say a few words about what the response that you'll look into with the county is, and then we'll take questions.
Sure. So, I mean, we think it's a great idea. We're super interested. Like Len said, I think you explained it really well. We're just kind of waiting to see from the RCD and from Parks and from Panorama and MPL how much money we would need from the county. Just because we don't want to just throw out a number and say we're going to give you an X amount of money. We want to know what actually is needed to make this a really good project. But the supervisor's very interested in it, and we're happy to support.
Okay, thanks, Clellis. Okay, so Michelle, if you could take questions.
Yes, Dan, go ahead. Dan, you're still on mute. If anyone else wants to ask a question of Len or Lena, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Go ahead,
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So Len, you were talking about a San Francisco example, but you didn't give I don't think you gave the name. Are you talking about like the Sutro Forest?
That's right.
Okay, because you didn't say that. So I wasn't really sure what you were talking about up there. So, okay. Thank you.
The document I post will have links to these different pieces. So people
this whole Zoom thing, when you can't ask a question and you're not in a room and you can't, I don't know if you see my hand up, but sometimes when you go on and on and on, I got to kind of follow you. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll get through it. Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Jill? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, so you have some seed money, $9,000, and the county, you're going to partner up with the county to get more money to have community involvement in fire prevention in Quarry Park?
We're looking for environmental and Kellex RCD to come together and talk about what they think would constitute the details and things that need to be covered and to provide a scoping cost. So that's the next step in definition, and the county has said they're very interested in contributing some funds as well.
But it would be a community effort, is that correct? Or would it be a subcontractor to do the work?
No, this is Panorama Environmental would be doing the work with guidance from RCD in terms of the work itself and community process. They're doing that as well as a part of it, but they want to bring things back for us to respond to.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Len or Lena?
I have a question.
Yes, Barbara, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I can't find the raise hand function.
That's okay. It's under reactions at the bottom usually, but it might be different.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. It's not under reactions, right? Anyway, I just wanted to say I think this is a really good approach. That the better prepared you can be with a plan and a notion of what needs to be done, the more likely we are to get funding. So I encourage getting started with these people who have credibility. If the county will help with the planning process, I think that's great. The RCD is amazing, and we should work with them as much as possible. But I think Len is on the right track here. It's great that Midcoast Parklands might have some seed money to contribute. It's great to hear that Supervisor Horsley's office might want to contribute something. Let's get this done. And then I think we'll really be well positioned. The need for fuel modification and mitigation and so forth is not going away. So let's keep on it and make this happen.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Anyone else have questions? Dan, looks like you have another one. Go ahead.
I just have to, I'm sorry, everybody. I just have to reiterate because this is just, this confusion level is getting just, we've got Nicholas involved. We've got CAL FIRE involved. We've got Len now involved. We've got Kellex involved. Now we've got a planner involved. Do we remember when Greg Diegas asked a long time ago for, who is the point person that we could look at and who could publish, what's going on? Am I the only one that's finding this? It's hard to really kind of, Len said this and Kellex said that. And I remember, Nicholas told the Board of Supervisors back in January, and it's just, I don't know. Maybe it is just me having a difficult time following all this. And it seems like the more I try to follow it, the wider it gets and the more confusing it gets. So I'll just keep working at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's actually a good lead in into what we're going to share next, which is the handout. But I see Greg's hand up, so let me go to Greg first, and then we can jump into that.
Well, Len, I wonder if you can speak to whether, did I miss it, or did you cover that document that you found that showed an attempt to define governance regions and whether or not the consultant that we're engaging is going to speak to the issue of governance, who's in charge?
Yeah, you're talking about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan document. It's not well enough represented that I wanted to bring it up in this context. So I will post it. I don't have anything to say there on that. As far as the governance part, I think they're well able to work with government. They're not a government, or it's not a governance issue per se. And I think you and Dan have rightly called for the issue of there are many large efforts, but there's not anyone sitting on top of everything. I think we do have to respect Kellex from her position on the RCD, which is really centered on the coastal region to begin with. And her style of management is to work as effectively as possible with many groups. So it puts her in a position to be direct in that way. And I think that's the best I can answer there.
Can I just add that, Joe Leclerc, before he retired, used to talk about the balkanization of governance in the county. And I remember joining a company that had 3 product lines and a functional organization, customer service, marketing, sales, development, and each department tried to serve the 3 product lines. And they fired the president, brought in a new guy, and he called me into his office and he asked, and I thought I was going to get fired, and he asked me if I wanted to run one of the product lines. He's reorganizing into an organization that was more product focused. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And he said, well, it's because I want to know who to shoot in the kneecaps. So I've always remembered that as kind of a graphic way of explaining that focus of management is essential to progress. And I'm not going to say today that we should do X or Y or Z, but it's pretty clear that the Midcoast is relying on organizations which have a functional horizontal intent, like parks, lots of parks, RCD, helping a lot of people. So I think that the issue is going to remain open. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
Thanks. It looks like Lena has something to say. Go ahead, Lena.
Sorry, just super quick, and I'm sorry if this isn't exactly what you're addressing, Greg, but in regards to this proposal that Len is bringing up with Panorama, I think the thought for this in particular is that because we're looking at the ground holistically and how the environment behaves, this isn't something that needs to be specifically separated from parks and private lands and DPW and all those different things. But then when we get funding, we can separate it that way. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but the idea is that because this is more just about the environmental look of it, we're not looking at specific projects. We're just looking at where is the biggest issues, where's the biggest fire danger. That wouldn't necessarily be a problem for this exact project.
Okay. I think the best next step will be to go into this document because we've had a lot of conversations. Now we've had 2 meetings, the entire last meeting, and this whole section of this meeting focused on what we can do, and we know there are a lot of things that we can do. So I'm going to just share my screen and share a document that we put together. So Len, Greg, and I have been working on this topic for the last couple of meetings now. And this is a document that talks about the individual issues, the potential resolutions, the responsible party, and that's just really us taking a stab at that. And it, to Dan's point, there are, a lot of different responsible parties for the different issues, and these are all related to wildfire. And then what potential MCC actions we can take. So I'm going to quickly run through these, and then I want to go around to the council to have each council member kind of speak as to which issues you think, or which actions you think we should take next. Because there's a lot here, and we know there's a lot happening, but I really want to start to kind of break off these issues and say, what can we really focus on to make progress? So these are not sorted in any sort of order in terms of priority. These are just listed out. So first issue, there's, eucalyptus, the fact that eucalyptus removal on private property requires a permit process and a fee. The potential resolution, and we know this is in progress, is to modify the tree ordinance to remove the fee and simplify the process. That's the planning department that's responsible for that. So this is something that we know is already happening. We've heard that it will be done by the end of the year, has been the latest estimate. It's pretty slow, but that's what we're hearing right now. So we could support that. I think that's the action we could take, is to kind of follow up with the planning department and write a letter in support. Unfortunately, that's kind of our only action for a lot of these things, but we'll go through them. Next thing, the chipper program is not adequate. Potential resolution could be increase the frequency of that program. We know that's the Resource Conservation District that's responsible for that, so we could work directly with Kellex. I think that's proven to be, we have been working with her, and it's proven to be a good pathway to get advancements, and so that could be a potential option there. Next is there's no early detection program for wildfire on the Midcoast. The resolution would be to install cameras. We think CAL FIRE, at least, they may be working with other agencies, but they have spoken about this at our last meeting, and our action could be to work with them and other parties to find potential locations and install cameras. This is the one that Dan mentioned, which is obviously a big issue, the fact that no single entity is responsible for wildfire preparation. The county could form an agency to be responsible. We haven't seen that happen yet. I don't know how likely that is, but we could potentially work with Supervisor Horsley to do that, or write a letter in support. But that's, that I think is an unlikely one, just me speaking personally, but, something we can consider. Next is the El Granada medians, have the eucalyptus trees that we know are unsafe and a potential fire hazard. The resolution would be the county could take responsibility for cutting trees in the medians and work with GCSD on the restoration. Those are the 2 agencies, the county and GCSD. So our action could be work with Supervisor Horsley to find the funding or write a letter in support. And I know that's something that's he's already interested in doing. I wasn't sure if we had an update specifically on that. this week from either Lena or Len?
Sure. I don't have a new update. I mean, we're still interested. I know the supervisor has reached out to DPW. That might cost, but I don't have any new pertinent information. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I should add DPW there to the agency. Okay, next is the gate at the top of El Granada Boulevard is locked. An option could be obtaining an easement to allow the gates to be unlocked. I'm not exactly sure who the responsible party is there. We could potentially write a letter in support. Next is the above ground power lines are a potential fire hazard. Those lines, especially those along Upper El Granada Boulevard. So PG&E could possibly put those power lines underground. We could write a letter or even reach out to them to try to get that to happen. Next is that there's no MCC representation on the Fire Safe Council. I don't think it's like that we have to officially join it. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but we could at least designate a representative to attend those meetings going forward on a regular basis. And then next is the evacuation routes along the highways have eucalyptus groves. We know Highway 1 north of the tunnels, Highway 1 along Frenchman's Creek, Highway 1 along Medio Creek, and then along Highway 92. The resolution could be to pursue funding to remove the eucalyptus there. It could be Caltrans for the areas that are in the Caltrans right away, or potentially Cal Fire. Put a question mark there. Action could be further research who's responsible and then write a letter in support. The next couple are the same problem. The Quarry Park is full of the eucalyptus trees. Pursue funding to build fire breaks. It looks like, actually I should put RCD here because that's actually happening and that's what Kellogg spoke to tonight. So I don't think anything needs to be done currently on that because it's already in progress. For the second part of that, it's explore this revegetation project. That's what's also in progress that Len has been working on. And so the action would be to facilitate that privately funded study with a possible county contribution, or write a letter in support. Just a few more. Areas around Moss Beach and Montera have the fire-prone eucalyptus groves. We could pursue funding there. Lots of potential responsible parties, again, Caltrans, GGNRA, Cal Fire. So we could further research that. A problem is that eucalyptus and other fire hazards are common on private property. We could pursue that to modify the fire code to allow eucalyptus and other trees to be subject to fire abatement orders and enforce those orders. That would be Cal Fire's responsibility. So we could write a letter in support of that. The fact that the eucalyptus and other fire hazards, this is on private property, are costly to remove. Potentially we could provide, or the county could provide funds to incentivize its owners to remove the trees that pose the fire hazards. So we could write a letter in support of that. And then the last one is that the concern that residents' concerns are not being adequately addressed. So one potential option could be to escalate concerns above the county. And I put, potential people we could reach out to there. So those are kind of how I may have missed some stuff, but those to me and to the group of us that have been working on this kind of seem like all the major issues that we've discussed at the last couple of meetings and what we could potentially do about it. And then I just have here the possible funding sources. So the LHMP, which is going to be our next subject, which we'll talk about in a moment, RCD or Fire Safe SMC to file grants. That's already somewhat in progress. There's been some talk about potentially trying to get Measure K funds along the lines of like safety and homeless prevention. We could end up pursuing with the county local property taxes. And then there's the California wildfire package that was recently passed, which Kellogg spoke about as well. Len and Greg, did you want to add anything to this? No, okay.
I think you've explained everything, but I could offer comments on what I think is doable and feasible.
Yeah,
we might want to hear from the other council members first.
Yeah, so let's actually do the public comments on this, and then we'll go around the council, and then we'll close out this item. So public comments, I see M. Fleming.
Okay.
I
just wanted to
go ahead.
Yes, Michelle Maureen Fleming. I just wanted to ask, that handout that you just showed us, will that be available then once this agenda, the minutes get published? I thought it was
it's actually already available on the website on midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. I just posted it around 6 p.m. tonight. So it's under just midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. It's the first item under this meeting, wildfire agenda item handout. I can post a link directly to that in the chat.
Okay. And where you say write a letter, do you mean that the MCC will, or people on this call will write the letter? Because I really, I have a lot of thoughts on a lot of what you listed on that chart.
Yeah, so a lot of times the actions that the MCC can take are really to write letters. And so that was that the MCC could potentially write letters for those topics. Of course, we always love to hear from our constituents, and you can always email us or speak at the meeting with your thoughts. So if you have any thoughts after this meeting, you can email midcoastcommunitycouncil@gmail.com. And that goes to all 7 of us.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next, Graham.
Okay, so one thing that I don't see on there is prior to the last meeting, there was a petition presented to MCC by the vast majority of the residents of Upper El Granada Boulevard, expressing our concern that the work that is planned for Quarry Park seems to exclusively be in areas that are not related to where the majority of the homes are. And I don't see that anywhere on your list. Is the MCC just ignoring the petition from the large majority of residents on Upper El Granada Boulevard who are very concerned? I mean, obviously, many people in El Granada are concerned about the fire danger. Upper El Granada Boulevard does have very specific problems. Some of it caused by the lock gate. Well, that's only made things worse, and a single evacuation route and a inadequate fuel break at present. And I don't see that anywhere in your list of items that you should be concerned about. What we were asking for in the petition was that the fuel break be improved and that the MCC write a letter in support of that request. And we know that writing letters is what MCC does. So that was what we were asking for, and I don't see anything in that list that you have there as supporting our petition.
Can I comment on that, Michelle?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, 2 points. One is as specifically directed toward the fire breaks proposed to date by the county. I think what Graham is saying makes sense, and that should be added here as a particularly wordable item. At the same time, when I talked about the study, that was explicitly intended to include the entire residential area in the modeling work done and the medians. So it's the whole of El Granada / Quarry Park under consideration.
Thanks, Len, for that. Yeah, I would just say that is the concerns. We've definitely read your petition and are well aware of your concerns. We're holding these meetings, in large part due to your concerns. And I would say that falls under they're not numbered, but items 10 and 11, which are the second, the first two full items on the second page. We can call it out specifically. Your issue, there's no reason that we can't add that as its own item, but I was just capturing that under the larger issue that Quarry Park is full of eucalyptus, and many homeowners all around the area are, potentially impacted by that. I know that those of you on Upper El Granada Boulevard have a more severe situation. But yeah, we'll add it as a separate issue. But I think that some of these things that we're already pursuing are working to address that.
Oh, yeah, surely. But thank you. It would be appreciated if you could add it as a separate issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Gopi Mittal.
Hi, thanks. I also live in Upper El Granada, actually at the very top of the hill. So pretty much no place to go if there's a fire anywhere below me. I was wondering among the items whether we're looking at new technologies. We're in the, basically the core technology area of the world, and not hearing a lot of options to mitigate fires from the startups that are coming up. So are there ideas or options to fund startups or create an X prize kind of model where good ideas can be rewarded or taken to further funding, et cetera, among the solutions we have?
It's a good idea. And I think if you know of any, I know of a startup pursuing like the wildfire cameras, and that's probably the closest technology solution that we have on here. Us as the MCC doesn't have any funding on our own, but we could potentially work with the county. I don't know that, I think it's a good idea. I don't know that something like the X Prize, we would have enough funding for that. It almost seems like that would be better to even potentially contact that organization and see if they're working on something more broadly for the state as a whole, since this is, we have our own particular issues, but this wildfire is obviously an issue that affects the entire state and other parts of the country as well. So I think it's interesting to think along those lines, especially given that we are in Silicon Valley. And if anyone knows of any startups that are working on potential solutions, technological solutions to this, I think we'd be all for it. We just don't have.
I put a link out there. Okay. There's a solution that's far better than cameras already. Cameras are one-dimensional, are going to miss a lot of fires, but there are sensor devices that sense humidity, heat, all of that, and it already exists. It's an Australian company, but we are, quite behind in even the technology that we could actually deploy today. So I think there's a lot of options that I think we're not really able to.
I'll say that CAL FIRE deploys sensors already on some of their camera platforms, including heat and humidity.
We can take a look at that, though. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Sure.
Okay. I see that Brian Levi has his hand raised.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to, in terms of other things that to follow on to Gopi's comment, one of the things I'm one of the people who lives on Upper El Granada Boulevard and very concerned about the fire hazard up here. And one of the things I looked at was an external fire sprinkler system for my home, and it's prohibitively expensive, at least for me. And one of the things I would like the county to consider doing and the MCC to support is a property tax incentive, a break to put in things like that.
That's a great idea. Thank you. I'll add that to the list.
That's it.
Okay, thanks. All right, next we're going to go around to members of the council. So public comment on this item is closed. Let's go around to members of the council and just, take a couple minutes to let us know, let the council and the community know your thoughts on these items. I'd love to hear if there were 2 or 3 that you'd like to pursue, and I'll kind of keep note of how many people are like kind of voting for each item. Obviously, we can pursue more, but just in terms of prioritization, I'd love to hear the top priorities for each member of the council. So Dan, you have your hand raised. Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Thank you. So I have to be honest. I feel that this method here, going through this whole list, it really feels like we're spinning our wheels in dry clay, powdery dust. We're not getting anywhere, and we got all this little work to do and think about, scratch our heads. But it's important for everybody to know that, it was back in August when I started talking to Supervisor Horsley about getting moving in this direction. To date, it sounds like people are still having trouble getting the trees down. One of the items on this spreadsheet is the power lines. We have to remove the trees. To do an underground going up that hill, that is just not practical at this point, in my opinion. We need to trim the trees, get the trees down, get a commitment from Supervisor Horsley that he will help the community take care of this problem that's been existing, all these months. And I have to say, I have a friend that I spoke with today. He lives up in Katati. He told me his property up there, he's been up there for about 30 years, about as long as I've had my house. This year, somebody helped me that the adobe clay in that area, every summer it dries and then it separates, and there's a term for that where it cracks, fissures or whatever. This is the first year that never went away in the winter. And he said that you can almost walk straight across Lake Mendocino, which the dam that feeds Russian River. So this drought that we're in, there's no time we need to get a commitment from Supervisor Horsley to do whatever it takes to make it easy for private property owners to remove trees that are close to power lines, and to remove trees that are close to that are an obvious fire risk. And get a commitment from the parks director that he's gonna give effort towards getting shovel-ready projects started, because that is exactly the opposite of what I heard him say. So I'll go through quickly. Yes, private property, make it easy. Yes, put an incentive. The medians. Supervisor Horsley said he was going to get DPW to. They've been talking about that for years. I haven't heard anything from DPW to help get those. We don't have to get everyone, maybe not, but certainly a good portion of them. The gate, come on, give everybody up there a key to the gate, and it should almost be. Like an emergency, break this window is a key right there. What else? Caltrans, come on, please. That's Supervisor. I called Jerry Hill, talked to him personally, tried to get him to get me connected with Caltrans, with his help, to take care of all these eucalyptus trees that are on Caltrans property. He said, Dan, let it go through the county. Supervisor Horsley was aware of this early on. I thought I heard him saying that he made some connection, but we're jumping all over in circles here. It's my understanding that and I've said this for months, Supervisor Horsley, it's his he's the best person to communicate directly to Caltrans on that issue. And that's direct from the state senator. Quarry Park, yes, please break it up. Do some serious fire breaks. Moss Beach and Montera, at some point, you can't hit every single tree, but if there's the thing is the more they're around, like Quarry Park's a perfect example. If that gets out of control, there's nobody that's going to be able to drive in there to do anything. We came full circle to talk about private property. Thank you for listening. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Next, let's go to Dave.
Well, given that this document didn't exist until 6:30 tonight, I obviously did not read it before the meeting. It's way too long to even make any casual opinions about, let alone prioritize 2 to 4 things out of the list. So I applaud the effort. I think it was too broad and it was way too late to be useful for this meeting. So I don't have anything to say.
Okay, well, I'm not asking you to comment specifically about the document. It's more about like which of these things that we've been talking about for the last 2 meetings you want us to make progress on first.
We've talked about 50 different things. So given that I didn't even know that was the goal of this agenda item, I don't have such a list.
Okay. Next, then I'll go to Jill.
Thanks, Michelle. I echo Dave's sentiments. I didn't read it beforehand. I apologize. And it's too big to digest, but I really appreciate the work that went into it. I do want to say something, though. So let me start out with, does anyone remember the tsunami event of March 11th, 2011? Anyone remember that? So there was a 9.8 earthquake in Japan, and so we had this supposed tsunami that was coming towards us, and the San Mateo County issued an evacuation. And so I was living on Sonora Avenue at that time in El Granada, and a neighbor knocked on my door, Charlie Hall, and he's a veteran. And he informed us that he was the neighborhood captain and that he needed us to prepare to evacuate. So I'd only been here 3 years. I had no idea what he was talking about. But my whole family was lectured on what we needed to get and where we were going to go. And if we weren't driving over the hill, we were going to all march up, to the top of El Granada. And it was super cool. I was very impressed. Of course, I had to go to work that day, so I was stuck on 92 in the traffic for about 3 hours, and we never got anywhere. But I wonder if those neighborhood groups still exist in the Midcoast. I don't have any in my neighborhood right now, but wouldn't it be cool if we had those again? And I just saw on the Fire Safe Council website that they have funding to develop and create new local fire safe councils. So they're looking for for communities who want to have their own fire safe council. And I think it would be wise for us to talk to them and see what we could do to make that happen, because they help you plan and manage community wildfire preparedness projects. They help you acquire grant funding, and maybe we should look at having neighborhoods have fire captains or just emergency, neighborhood programs. I just think it's a great idea. Greg's right. We have very intelligent people on the coast. We have people who take initiatives, great resources. So I would love to have more people involved, and maybe the MCC could work with the county and, get that up and going. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Yeah, I mean, I think there's coastside CERT, but that sounds like that's different from what you're talking about.
That is different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know coastside CERT is very involved.
There's an awful lot of overlap.
Yes. Yeah. It looks like Michelle Dragoni has a comment maybe about Coastside, so I'll let you go ahead and speak, Michelle.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Coastside is incredibly developed, and everybody on the MCC should be a CERT person. Without being a CERT trained person, you don't understand what we're doing. Everything that you said, we're already doing. We're getting grant funding. Doesn't mean that Fire Safe Council isn't also something that we could work with, but we're already there, and we've been around for 30 years. So we have 1,900 people that are on our email list. So join the email list if you're not already on it. And we just graduated 38 people 2 weeks ago from a hybrid CERT course, which is the first in the state of California. We did it last year. We were actually the first, and we were also the first and the second. But no, we are total. There's certain neighborhood people already. So contact me, and I'll find out who the person who is your neighborhood captain. There are a couple of neighborhoods that don't have a captain yet. So if there isn't a captain in your neighborhood, Jill, perhaps you would like to be one, and I can help you do that. But no, we're on fire right now. We've done so much training in the last 3 years since Coastside Fire Protection District gave us the nod. And now we made $60,000 in grants last year, and we're going after another a couple of 10,000 in terms of materials that we can hand out to our CERT graduates. So if you have any questions, I'm a CERT trainer, so I'm really into it. Feel free to call me.
Great, thank you so much, Michelle. I'm also a CERT. I think everyone else needs to get going on that too. It's a great program, and you learn so much, and we need to get our communities even more involved.
Can I ask one question about the CERT program in neighborhoods? So do you get together monthly, or do you knock on doors, or is it all online?
Once you get, so to get trained, you start with 317 FEMA, and it's 12 hours. This is part of our hybrid thing. And then you come in, and we have a Saturday and Sunday where it's 8 hours each day. And we basically take you through a bunch of drills and things like that. And at the end of it, you have your CERT training. At that point in time, it's your job to do your job in your neighborhood. You can decide how many meetings you have per week. You can decide everything for yourself. It's totally bottom up, except for the original sort of FEMA training, which sort of gives you the guidelines on how the public agencies work and things like that, how communications work, how the incident command system works. Once you have those tools, then you can implement anything that you want within your neighborhood. It could be, in fact, like a defensible space day, where everybody in your neighborhood gets together and you take all the crap out of your gutters and you remove the stuff that's in the cracks next to your recycling bins and things like that. Those are the things that are going to be your ember attractors in a wide casting fire. So there's tons and tons of things that the neighborhoods can do and are doing right now. So anything I can do to forward this, I'm happy to do.
Thanks, Michelle. And maybe it makes sense at a later meeting for us to have a presentation from Coastside CERT to hear about everything that's going on.
Cynthia Sherrill will do an awesome job. Yeah.
Yeah, we had her a couple of years ago, I think, and we'd love to have her back. So I'll follow up with her on that. Great. Okay. I'm going to continue going around the council then. And next, let's go to Claire.
Well, there's all kinds of ways of looking at this. I do echo the fact that I didn't look at this until about 20 minutes ago because it wasn't there when I looked earlier. I also sort of agree with Dan a little bit that this whole topic starts spinning and you don't know where to step into it without being cut into pieces. There's so many pieces here. So I think what we need to do is think about what can the MCC do practically to have immediate results. And if I looked at those things, it would probably be the first three things on this list. I think that we could put meaningful pressure on getting the tree ordinance modified, even on an emergency basis. I think we could definitely make some noise that would end up with the removal of eucalyptus trees from private property being much more simplified. I think we could do that. The chipper program, I would rephrase that to say not the chipper program is not adequate, but the chipper program is wildly popular. And we would like to see much more of it. I don't know if that's how possible that is. I think that I go back to what Calix said, that this is their project and they're pretty overwhelmed, but that doesn't mean that the county couldn't buy another chipper. So I think those two things we could definitely have some impact on a really fairly short-term time frame. The cameras, I was just trying to look at the link that somebody put on about Stanford. I don't know, cameras may not be the most up-to-date thing, but there are definitely locations where cameras could be put, and we could probably put some pressure on to have that happen. So I would look at those things as sort of immediate things. Beyond that, we do not have to solve everything. Like what we did when the tunnel was closed, we made an effort to make all the other agencies talk to each other and have them come up with some ideas with our goading, and it worked fairly well. In this case, I think most of these agencies are in touch with each other. They do have at least some rudimentary working relationships, and I think inserting ourselves into things that are already going on is probably not the best approach, but I think encouraging quicker processes on the things that the people are already working on would be useful. Also, we're noting how many really good people are in the community, how many contacts different people have, how many skills people have. And I think one of the things we can do as the MCC is encourage the people that have skills and interests and contacts to use them. Even, not necessarily as part of the MCC, but as part of the community. We're only a part of the community, and other people are also parts of the community, and they can do things on their own, as well as us doing things as an organization. So that's basically where I'm coming from. It's so easy to go off spinning in different directions with this. I really think we need to focus ourselves and do the things that we can do easily. And then if we want to do more things, we can do more things after we do these quick and dirty things.
That makes sense, Claire. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get out of this is like, what can we do? Not necessarily what is the most important, but where is our time best spent? Where's the low hanging fruit, I guess, in terms of what's going to have the biggest impact for the, lesser effort that we have with just the 7 council members. So I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, we can do the chipper and we can do the private property.
Yeah. Okay. Continuing to go around the council then, let's go to Len next.
As we did it, I circled the items that related to the kind of effort I'm working on. About 7 or 8 of them fit there to at least references or bring those up. So that was what I did.
Do you want to list those off quickly because I'm keeping notes?
Sure. The county farm and agency certainly merits consideration, taking responsibility for the trees and the medians. The joining the Fire Safe Council, pursue funding to remove eucalyptus, explore possibility of revegetation projects, pursue funding to remove eucalyptus, revising the fire code and fire abatement orders there. And then in terms of escalating concerns above the county, one would hope with a good plan we could reach up to higher levels. I know MROSD took all of theirs to all those state legislators. So that's something to consider.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Greg Dieguez, let's go to you last.
I would just prioritize, like you said, some things I think we should be involved in immediately. I've heard that the Planning Commission is going to, by the end of the year, maybe have a revised ordinance. And of course, Monowitz made favorable noises when Danny Turwey presented his plan at the last Planning Commission meeting. I can't believe what I'm hearing. They're still reviewing and processing applications for construction in our area. They're taking staff time to approve routine orders of business. and not revising the permit process? That's nuts. I would write an immediate letter from the MCC, as I think Claire suggested, call it an emergency and say, cut it out. Stop the permit fees, make it same day application. And I think you're headed there. But the fact that it's going to take the rest of the year, if that is a fact, that's crazy. I'd write that letter right away. And there are several residents, by the way, who are excellent writers. They could draft it for us and send it to us for approval. So we don't have to do all the work. The chipper program seems to be going fine. The residents have pushed and gotten some adjustment, so I would leave that alone between now and the next meeting. The early detection program on the cameras, I would appreciate having a deputized member of the community pursue that. I could tell them who to talk to. It came up at the Cal Fire Safe meeting. That's a no-brainer. As far as the organization, between now and the next meeting, I would have somebody like Len, I think, volunteering, continue to advance that, but I don't think we'll have any action between now and May 12th. The medians, I'll talk about in the LHMP speech. The gate at the top of El Granada Boulevard, Karen Allenson and I already wrote an article on this. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's easy to write a letter on that. I cannot believe that it is allowed to be locked and that they granted the homeowner in 2003 a plot extension the way they did. It's nuts. And so I think that's something the MCC should support as a whole, getting rid of or moving that gate. The power lines, I'll stay out of that for now. I don't think it's a bad idea, but it's not something I could see doing between now and May 12th as in proposing a new letter. The Fire Safe Council, look for a volunteer. I've attended one meeting. I'll attend some more, but I'd appreciate it if somebody would be deputized by the MCC from the community or another council member would agree to attend that. The evacuation routes, I'll talk about that on the LHMP presentation. Quarry Park, I think we've talked about that enough. Lynn is pursuing that, and I'll be working on it. The same thing with the identifying the areas that are fire prone in Moss Beach. That'll be part of an LHMP effort. Revising the fire code, that's an idea that came from a community member. And that, again, to me is a no-brainer. I'm going to be meeting with CAL FIRE this Friday, and I'll find out, is there a problem with doing that? Would it work the way we intend? What kind of changes, who has to make them? But I think we should be able to write a letter in support of changing the fire code so that eucalyptus is treated as a weed. We might want to extend it to Monterey pines. I do agree with incentivizing the funds. I don't think we could write a letter supporting that, but I think we need to have Lena and Don Horsley talk about, what the county is willing to consider there. And I would not at this time, but I'm close, write the state assembly and senator, not between now and May 12th, but I suggest we write an MCC letter. So that's where I'm coming down.
Okay, thank you for that. We do need to close out this item. I see Dan has his hand raised. Dan, do you have a very quick comment?
Yes, just very quickly. Thank you. So I think, after looking at all this, you have the one item there that there's no single agency responsible. I care less about who's responsible. I care about something getting done. I think the MCC, I think what we should do is we need to be the tracking house. We need to have a sheet, with the Caltrans issue. Do we all agree that it should be, tidied up and, cleared, at least on the Caltrans property? Yes. Who's responsible? Supervisor Horsley to take action and communicate with Caltrans. Has anything been done yet? What has he reported back to us on that? Leave a box, and if we have all these empty boxes, I think people are going to start to rush to us and say, hey, MCC, check that box for me, please. But we have to track what's needed and date it, publish it so that we, everybody knows that, hey, we're clearly asking for this. This is the status. Nothing's getting done. And at the same, share that with the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just to close this out, it looks like the items, okay, so we know Len is going to continue to pursue the project that he spoke about earlier. I definitely heard from at least 3 council members, and I would throw my support behind this too, that we should do something about the eucalyptus removal on the private property. So I think we should write a letter about that for the next meeting. And I think everything else is, we have people kind of dedicated to them and are looking, and is continuing to progress. I would like a volunteer to join the Fire Safe Council on a more permanent basis from the MCC. So if anyone wants to do that, please speak up. And I think that's pretty much it for right now. So I think in terms of the eucalyptus removal part of the on the private property, the planning department issue, do I have anyone who wants to work on that letter? I know it was Dan, Claire, and Greg who threw their support behind it. I see Greg's hand raised. We can split this off and I see Claire, thank you. What I was gonna say is, like, this is why we're starting to break this up, is because it's such a big issue and we can't have the same 3 people work on all of it. So I wanna start to split this off. So Greg and Claire, it would be great if the 2 of you could work on that letter. And if anyone else wants to volunteer, we could have a 3rd, or I can be a part of that. But yes, let's try to do that for the May 12th meeting. And that'll be good progress, and we'll continue to talk about what else can be done as well.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. All right, so Claire, Dan, and Greg, thank you for that. All right, awesome. Let's close out this agenda item and move on to the next item, which is the LHMP. Greg is going to be sharing his screen, so I'll hand it over to you, Greg.
We're going to find out if I'm going to share my screen. This is going to be the first time I've ever done this in an MCC meeting. So let me know if you can see that or not.
It's there. Good job.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something called local hazard mitigation plan. And so the question is this a way to raise money for projects, a World War II amphibious assault vehicle, a county plan to reduce disaster risk, or all of above? And the correct answers are 1 and 3. The idea is a mitigation strategy is a sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risks to life and property. Here are some examples. Notice that tree planting is part of this. And of course, that's the revegetation that we're talking about after we remove eucalyptus. Policies are also part of it, but getting funding for policies that should probably be adopted now, and when we won't get the money for a year or 2, is sort of silly. Incentives, though, is also part of it. So I think we can look to the local hazard mitigation plan for also helping us establish incentive plans and financial assistance plans. Why do we do them? Mostly we do them to get money. Cal Office of Emergency Services is going to be taking everything we put together and forwarding it to FEMA. The county's hired consultants to try and help write this all up so that we qualify. And I don't know that I need to read this slide. I do want to point out the timeline, which is a problem. The crew at the county that is doing this wants the first submissions on May 21st to identify the hazards and perform a risk assessment. I put a little red box on the timeline to show that. And they plan on submitting the overall package at near the end of August. So we're kind of in a hurry to get people to define the hazards and risks and ask for the money. And so that's why I got involved in trying to chase around some of the Midcoast agencies. That MWSD and GCSD got involved. SAM is going to be trickier, partly because of governance issues and disputes there, but they are going to make an effort to submit a hazard mitigation plan. Clearly, they're affected by sea level rise and flooding and tsunami and earthquake more than they are by wildfire. But I do expect that is going to be going forward. We just had the supervisor of Cabrillo Schools attend. The first reaction I got from them was, oh, I think the county's handling that for us. And I'm just going to make sure that somebody is doing something there because it wasn't clear to me anything is happening. I am concerned about the earthquake safety. You people who are parents, I encourage you to advise me and others on the council. Is wildfire a concern there? Are there issues where tsunami or flooding would affect the schools? What else should be in that risk plan? Cabrillo obviously will have its own thoughts. One of the things I think we should be able to get funds for, because it's not just a wildfire danger, but it's an evacuation hazard, is removing eucalyptus on our evacuation routes. They're listed here. And I expect to be going forward working with people to try and figure out, can we get Caltrans to do that? Len also has expertise in this area, so I'm not sure who's going to do what about this. But right now, I have no indication that Caltrans is planning to do anything. And it seems like a massive oversight, because if they can qualify for the money, why can't we help them raise it, even if they have to spend it and do the work? Similarly, there's a right-of-way that some of you are aware of from Caltrans. It stretches from Pacifica to somewhere, I think, in Lost Beach. That has eucalyptus stands on it. It's a problem. I don't know if Montero Water and Sanitary District is going to get involved in helping define what needs to be done there. But I would love to turn that land over to the custody of somebody who would actually maintain it safely. And I don't see that being done now. We've talked about the El Granada medians. I'm sure somebody's handling it. I did not get a commitment from the public works person, but we did hear from Don Horsley. He's going to help with this. I think we should be pursuing funding to revegetate those medians as well. And again, GCSD is here. I don't know what role they want to play, but I would expect it's their town. So maybe they have a role they could help play in writing that grant and certainly in supervising the deployment of the funds. And Quarry Park is the big one. The key thing I've heard from the consultants that are working with FEMA is that just clearing fuel is a lower priority. But if you have a permanent thing you're doing, that counts as a higher priority. So I think we want to be careful in trying to write grants to get the money to revegetate Quarry Park, that it's a permanent solution. It's a 150-year-old problem. I think if we remove the trees, we could argue that's a pretty permanent solution, should qualify for funding. So what do we need? Well, immediately, remember, May 21st, we've got to submit something in writing. We need the council and any residents to nominate any other risks or governance gaps that need attention. And then I think the MCC has a role, but that's open for council discussion. And it's also open to discussion who we'd be writing to. I'm happy as an individual member of the council to pursue some of this stuff. I don't know if the 2-week plus time frame in between meetings is going to make us sufficiently responsive. Our next meeting is May 12th. We'll have another one, I assume, on the 26th. That's after the deadline. We could, of course, on some of the longer term items, invite people to present, et cetera. And finally, I would say to everybody listening, if you have not taken that local hazard mitigation plan survey, please do it. We want to be extremely highly representative as having filled out that survey as a community so that it's clear to the county that we're well aware of all the risks we face. If you want, I'll post that in the chat also. So that's it. I think take questions and comments and see if we can come up with a list of action items and assignees.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let's go around. If we have clarifying questions from the council or questions from members of the public, now's a good time to ask. I see Dan has his hand raised, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think we could just speed through this. Greg, I think this is great, but I think that we need to focus on keeping things simple. We've got a lot to do before the fire season, and the more it's simplified, the better. I don't think we need to talk about revegetating the medians now, because they don't create. It's going to be very easy to revegetate. I could throw wildflower seeds on there in a day. Up in Quarry Park's a different situation. You want, the erosion control vegetation for that purpose. It gets complicated.
Let me just clarify, Dan, okay. Let me clarify something. There's a May 21st deadline to ask for money.
Okay.
So are you saying you do not want to ask for any money between now and May 21st?
No, for chainsaws, for cutting trees down, yes. But I thought I saw something up there about revegetating the medians. That's not a priority. Maybe that's what we need to do. What are the biggest priorities? Yes, take down some of the eucalyptus trees. You don't have to replant there. It's not a fire hazard. Focus all the energy to reduce fuel. That's, and then
obviously I wasn't clear. The deadline of May 21st is to write documents requesting money. I think we should write documents requesting money for the medians by May 21st.
Yes.
If people disagree, okay.
It was the revegetation part. Keeping it simple. Keep things simple moving forward. That's all.
Okay, thanks for that, Dan. Claire?
I just went back and looked at the agenda to see what the desired outcome of this was, and the desired outcome of the previous agenda item. I really think that part of our problem is putting a desired outcome as vague as let's consider what we might do someday, which I know I'm being a little sarcastic, but I really think we're getting off onto too many different tangents because we have no clear direction as to what we're doing with our agenda items. I'm also unconfused. Maybe you can clarify this for me, Greg, that who is writing to whom to get money by May 21st?
The stakeholders in the county are writing to Ann Ludwig, the project manager, and the staff of the local hazard mitigation plan.
Okay.
She will compile all the requests.
I'm sorry. Are we requesting money from somebody?
No, we are making sure other people request money, and we're encouraging them to do so, and we're going to help them do it if they can't write it for themselves. At least I am.
Well, okay, that sounds presumptuous to me. And we're going to make them do this by the 21st of May. Is that correct?
Well, it's not a question of make. It's in everybody's best interest to ask for this money. That's why so many people have agreed to join into the program.
Yeah. The presentation that you gave seemed mostly focused on fire. There are a lot of other things in the hazard plan, or at least needs. I am just really kind of confused as to what the heck we're doing. Maybe I should just leave it there. It just feels totally unfocused to me. Maybe if I listen a little bit harder, it'll become into focus, but right now it's not.
I think that I hear your point, Claire. I think that, so from what I understand, Greg has been kind of chasing down all these different agencies, trying to get them to be aware. As we heard with Sean McFetridge speaking earlier, he wasn't even really aware of the fact that the Cabrillo Union School District could use this LHMP to apply for money. So what Greg has been doing has been chasing down these different agencies and making them aware. It's their job to apply for money. What I am also not clear on, and Greg can answer this for us, is what do we, for fire, what do we specifically, who is responsible for asking for the money, and how do we make that happen?
Well, that's the problem, right? We're trying to find out who's responsible. And that's the organizational issue that has been raised by Len and Dan and others. It's not clear.
Right. So what do you suggest that we do, in the next month, not even like 3 weeks?
Well, so I already wrote to Jim Porter and Horsley about the medians in El Granada, and we got some interest in Don's case of funding some stuff. but I still have to
Is
get
that
a
through the
commitment.
LHMP or that's separate?
Yes. Oh, no, that's funding. That's funding before the LHMP. I don't have a commitment that somebody's going to write for the LHMP yet.
Yep.
What was your other question about Quarry Park? I have no clue who is doing anything to ask for LHMP money there.
Okay. So
that seems pretty
realistically,
important.
yeah, and Nicholas is out on leave for the next month. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if Kellex could potentially help. It seems, I'm with Claire in that I don't see the clear path as to how we can help push things forward. All right, let's keep
Raise your hand.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle Dragoni, we'll go to you for comment.
So this is FEMA money. This is federal money. It's free money. It's a lot of money, a lot of it. And it's kind of like CERT. Every jurisdiction has to apply for it. Every citizen can fill out a survey that drives what that jurisdiction may or may not need. I'm not sure how they put that all together, but those are the mechanisms. But so SAM is a joint powers authority, so they can't actually apply for it. So there's a lot of these nuances about which jurisdiction can. Every jurisdiction should try for it because it is a lot of federal money. There's a ton of money. So the more people that we can get involved with applying for it, the better off we might be on Midcoast. Because
your signal's breaking up really bad.
We actually have more chance to get money from FEMA than we do from the county. Something to think about. Sorry.
So
I think we can get more money from FEMA than the
we
county
heard you. It
if
just
we
was
do
delayed.
the LHMP plan.
So one of the things I was hoping to hear from the council was suggestions on how we ask the county to address Quarry Park as part of the LHMP. But if you don't have suggestions, I'll work out ideas on my own.
I'm uncomfortable with that. I guess, am I muted? No, I'm not muted.
No, we hear you.
Yeah, I don't like the process of bringing things to the council saying, what should we do? And then we sit around and say, okay, I guess we should do something. Maybe we should do this or maybe we should do that. And then we can't reach a decision. And then Greg says, well, I'll just do it myself. This just doesn't seem like a good process to me.
I'm open to suggestions.
I think if I had heard how you're seeing this and how you're conceptualizing what needs to be done earlier and clearer, it would have been easier to work with. I'm not sure what my concrete suggestion is. Right now, it does not feel right. But I guess right now we have to do what we can to make sure that the money comes through. So we maybe can't solve the internal organization problem right now. Maybe we just need to focus on making sure that these things get applied for, and that would be, maybe that's our priority right now, and that's what you're trying to say, Greg. So if that's the case, then what are we trying to decide? What are we trying to decide?
I'm asking if the council has opinions on what we should do about the various risks I identified and who we should go to try and clarify things.
I had a lot of other books.
We can't apply, right, as the MCC. Can the MCC apply?
No.
Okay. So we would need someone else to do this for us.
Well, for them.
Well, for them, yeah, but money for the coast side. Okay, let's continue to go around. Let's go to Dave next.
Sorry about that. I'm having audio problems. We've got to have these presentations and clearer statements about what we're trying to do before the meeting. There's no way council members can digest this stuff and come to sensible decisions during the course of a meeting. That is not ever going to work. We have to stop that.
Sorry, are you saying
like
because we had it?
I'm not hearing anybody because I've got my sound off, sorry. Next time something comes up this way, I'm going to probably move that we just stop the item because this is not productive. It is not okay for Greg to pursue this on his own as a member of the MCC. He can pursue it as an individual, that's fine. But unless we as the MCC vote to have Greg represent us on this, he cannot do it as an MCC council person. And I am not comfortable with that idea. We already have the county working on this. The county is the government for the unincorporated area. They are pursuing some of this stuff. That's the whole reason the LHMP is being done. City of Half Moon Bay is involved, others are involved. I have no problem with us writing a letter on some project that already exists or saying we think this whole area is being skipped. But for us to try and develop a project and ask for funding for it just feels to me completely wrong. I'll let it go with that and turn my sound back on.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, Dave, I'm not sure if you can hear me now, but whether the issue you were was the fact that we didn't come to this meeting with like a potential solution, or that the presentation was posted late prior to the meeting.
The agenda gave no clue on what we were going to try and do as a result of Greg's presentation. Absolutely none. And since the presentation didn't exist, we didn't have anything to make us think, well, gee, maybe I should think about that. So we've got to be more prepared on this, or just do the presentation and say, okay, we'll make a decision at the next meeting. It's a waste of our time and the community's time for us all to sit around and talk about this when we're seeing it for the very first time.
Okay, fair enough. Let me continue to go around. Dolores Silva.
Hello. I'm probably going to take this yet to another direction, but the first time I ever heard about this hazard mitigation plan was when Joe Leclerc referred to it in regards to Connect the Coastside not having a plan for evacuation, because that was going to be covered by this hazard mitigation plan, which he thought would be done like September, October. And this was during a planning commission meeting that he made this statement. So I looked it up to see, well, what is this? And found that this state issues guidelines for people to, in regards to this hazard mitigation plan and what to consider. And they were in particular concerned that the different locations look at wildfire concerns, because that was just, again, it's just a guideline. It doesn't tell them exactly what they have to do. But I guess my concern now is like, who does represent the Midcoast to be sure that we are adequately represented on whatever hazards we feel we have? And I would like to know more about that. I think that maybe this presentation today was a little bit more than I expected, but not really having a good conceptual overview of how this works. But that timeline that Greg showed is very aggressive. I mean, it's like, it must be almost already done. I mean, if they expected to have it done by the end of May, it worries me that we are being left out. And I guess I'm sorry that we're not including ourselves. I mean, I'm not just talking about the MCC, prepared to understand this or know what to do, but it's again one of these things that just seems to happen without us being involved, and that's a problem. I don't know how we resolve that, but it's a problem, and I'm glad, Greg, that you've been searching into it, because I think it's a very important overview, and I hope we can make some progress and be involved and have a say in it. That's it.
Could I just clarify something? And I do appreciate council members' frustration. This was the first meeting I could get the LHMP on our agenda. We only meet every 2 weeks. In addition, it wasn't until I overheard Deborah Penrose at a SAM meeting say, oh, the LHMP were not part of that I ran around. Joe Leclerc, just before he retired at the end of March, let me know what it was. And he said, you know, the Midcoast doesn't want to be involved in this. They weren't involved in 2016 and they didn't want to be involved this year. We wrote them all in 2020. And I went, what? And of course they want to be involved. So yes, it's a surprise. In fact, there was a disconnect in 2016 and again in 2020. And so, yes, it's a rush. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do about it. With the Brown Act, we can only have 3 council members participate in discussing it anyway, Dave. So we could have had it on the agenda 2 weeks ago, maybe. That's all I could say about that.
Okay. Let's go to Lucy Wicks next.
Hi, thank you, Michelle. You know, I'm a little confused because as I'm looking at the website from the county, it's really laying out a pretty longer time frame of when people can get involved in this, and I'm seeing a series of different steering committee meetings for this effort, and then also a public workshop in July of this year. So it seems like there's an opportunity. I'm a little confused on what the date is here in May that we're looking to, or that you all are looking to potentially take action towards, but it does seem like there's an opportunity for this group to reiterate some of the needs that the Coast Side might like to emphasize and put within the radar of this planning process. I'm really excited to hear that there's this connection to Panorama Environmental. I'm quite familiar with the group, and they're really a wonderful group on planning and helping groups such as this and communities really figure out who has ownership of the issue, prioritizing that, figuring out return on investment. And it does feel like if we are moving quickly to figuring out what to do quickly, maybe this is an opportunity to both ask for funds for involving professional consultants who can sort of herd the cats of many jurisdictions and levels of interests here. But as it comes to this local hazard mitigation plan, I do think there's an opportunity for this group to help spread the word about making sure the public is aware of the July 22nd workshop, engaged, and turning out to really help represent the coast and the issues out here. And as you look at their priorities, and Greg, thank you so much for doing so much of the heavy lifting on this, is that it really is about flooding, drought, wildfire, landslides, severe weather, all these things that we do definitely feel out here. And so it feels like there is a great match here. It just sounds like this is an opportunity for us to make sure that our community is represented within this planning effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. It's a great point. I will ask Greg to briefly comment on that timeline. I know it's a little vague. We have this earlier deadline, but it sounds like, yeah, go ahead.
I got that slide right off of the, those slides that I presented were, what do you want to call it, copied and mutilated by me from documents presented by the LHMP and their consultants. So I didn't make those up. That graph, that timeline, that little box I put in there, end of May. I also have emails from Ann Ludwig specifying that that's the date for submittal. There will be longer discussions and there'll be the ability for people to add and flesh things out. So that's that. What was the other, was there another point there that I should speak to?
No, I think that was it on the timeline. Thank you. Okay, and next, Dan.
I just wanted to say, I really think that, the fire fuel reduction is the absolute priority. That's something that we can do right away, but we just got to get We just got to be focused on that, I think. And on the whole issue of the medians, I see Barbara Dyes there. I don't know if she wants to comment or not, but it seems like there's been, a debate. Who is in charge? Some people in GCSD say it's the county that's responsible. And the county says, no, it's the residents responsible. Well, in this case, let's put all that evidence in the public's eyes and daylight it, and so that the community can kind of follow this. Because if everybody's just pointing fingers back and forth, nothing's getting done. That's not good. Thank you.
I don't think we need to settle the legal issues. We merely need somebody to ask for the money. It could be the county, DPW, it could be GCSD, it could be whoever. And then we can argue about who gets to spend the money after we get it.
I agree.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing a real clear, I mean, I know that there's a desire for us to get money for wildfire and to use the LHMP as a tool to do that. We're all, I think, in agreement that that's the case, that we would like to do that. It's just the methods of how we do that that are unclear. So I think that we could encourage GCSD to work on getting funding for the medians, or DPW. Those are potential responsible entities. In terms of Quarry Park, it's either county parks or the RCD. But I don't know, Greg, since you brought this issue, I would love for you to identify, right now what you think should be done next. You're on mute.
Okay.
We're still thinking.
I think we should, or somebody from the MCC should work with the county to get Horsley or whoever is going to take responsibility at the county level to submit mitigation plans for Quarry Park and for the El Granada medians. And I would also suggest that we pursue through Supervisor Horsley, or maybe Lynn has other thoughts, who can get Caltrans involved in caring about their properties with eucalyptus. And I don't know whether that's going through Don Horsley or some other avenue.
So I indicated both I'd work with schools, and I'll certainly check with Caltrans. I don't actually see an avenue for Caltrans to work with in that area, but we can certainly put the question before them. I mean, they're a state agency in the county, so I know who to ask the question to, and I'll do that.
Okay.
And keep in mind, this hasn't been done since at least 2011. The Midcoast hasn't been represented in any local hazard mitigation plan, as I pointed out. We were excluded in 2016 because nobody knew about it or something. So our confusion is understandable, I think.
Okay.
On the Pacifica thing, I did speak with Senator Jerry Hill. He did tell me that it's the county of San Mateo that needs to address Caltrans. There's a community member up in Pacifica that did contact Caltrans on that. Caltrans responded to him, and Caltrans said, we've got more important things to do. This was back in October last year, I think.
Do you know who that person was?
Yeah, I don't want to give his name out because I don't want to, but that's just.
I'll check.
I'll have to check with them.
Okay. Claire?
Quick question for Dan. Oh, yeah. You said, Dan, you just said on the Pacifica thing, what were you referring to?
I was in touch with a member of the community, somebody that lived in Pacifica, who also has a concern with the eucalyptus trees between the North Portal and Lindemar.
Okay, that's what you're referring to. I wasn't sure. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
So he's right. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that since Len, Greg, and I worked on this, we can discuss offline whether there's something we want to bring forward at a future meeting. Understood Dave's point about we're kind of working as individuals to influence the other agencies. But we can, we can see if there's something we can put together prior to May 12th. Okay, let's close out this item then. Claire, did you still have your hand raised, or was that from before?
It's not from before. I guess I'm feeling the need to nail things down. I wasn't sure what you just said. You said maybe we'll try to put something together. What did you mean?
I'm not clear, honestly. Like I feel like we have no clarity on what needs to happen. So I'm hoping that the three of us can find some clarity. I'm not certain about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. It's still feeling very vague to me as well, and very there doesn't seem to be a clear path forward, especially by the deadline that we're looking at. If the deadline is later, then we can maybe, Lena actually suggested, should we have Anne from the county speak about the plan, the program, the LHMP, and whether we would want to have her come to one of our meetings and give us more information so that we do have more clarity. I think that might be beneficial, but I don't know if that's a moot point if the deadline is,
Michelle, I'm really uncomfortable with the three of you just going off and doing that without any vote on the council's part.
Okay.
Even as individuals, a group of 3 MCC council members working with the county as individuals is going to be seen as the MCC. So if that's what you want to do, I'm personally fine with making a motion that the 3 of you be an ad hoc subcommittee to go do that, but just doing it is not okay with me.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion for that then?
I move that Claire, Greg, and Lynn be an ad hoc subcommittee.
It would be me.
To follow
Greg,
up
and
on
Lynn.
the LHMP issues that Greg has raised with the county, GCSD, and anybody else that seems appropriate as official representatives of the MCC.
So it would be me. Claire's shaking her head and doesn't want to be involved. It would be me, Greg, and Lynn.
Sorry, correct motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Let's take a roll call vote. Lynn, please.
Jill?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Who's missing here?
You?
Myself, yes. And Dave. Claire?
Me?
Claire?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, great. That's the action then. The 3 of us will work as an ad hoc subcommittee to try to pursue next steps on the LHMP. Okay. Next, we are going to go to the election of the secretary and treasurer. And I hope I don't screw this up. The process, I believe, is to ask for a motion to nominate the new secretary. Dave's going to correct me probably. Dave, can you please explain the process? You're on mute. Oh.
I know I'm on mute. This is all very awkward with my sound problems. I'm getting sound from one laptop and microphone from the other, so sorry about that. It's basically the same process we go through each December. It's just that we're doing it mid-year. Officially, Len resigns as secretary. I resign as treasurer. And then somebody nominates new secretary and new treasurer, and that's 2 separate actions, and then we vote on them.
So as secretary, I'll nominate Dave as secretary.
I will officially resign as treasurer first.
Okay.
Thank you. And Len, will you officially resign?
Officially resign as secretary.
Okay. So sorry, Len, you said you nominated Dave as the new secretary?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Greg seconds. Okay. Let's take a roll call vote, and we have our.
This is a roll call for Dave as secretary.
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Greg. Dave.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Claire.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Passes 7-0.
Okay. Dave is our new secretary. Congratulations, Dave. Do we have a nomination for a new treasurer?
I will nominate Len.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Claire seconds. Okay, let's take a roll call vote. I'll have Dave do the roll call vote now for the nomination of Len Erickson as a new treasurer. Go ahead, Dave.
Yep, as my first official duty as secretary, I will do that. Len?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I am also yes.
Great. 7-0.
I don't need a vote.
Congratulations. Oh.
Sorry, Greg.
Aye.
That's got my first roll.
That's okay. And okay, congratulations, Len. You're a new treasurer. I believe we'll need to deal with that at the bank at some point.
You already have.
I need to be on there too, which I haven't done, but you're already on the account, right?
Yes.
And Dave never got on it. Okay, perfect. I'll fill out that form. That's that item. Next, we're going to go to the consent agenda item that got moved to the regular agenda, which is the minutes for April 14th. Jill, do you want to explain why you wanted to move that to the regular agenda?
Sure. I would like to modify a comment that I made, and I believe the time on your minutes was 22:45. And the comment is, as written, Jill feels the community is frustrated because they are being shut out and hopes that local grant writers in the community can help. And I would like that changed to Jill wants to continue the discussion and feels community members are frustrated because they want to be involved in the solutions and they're being shut out. She asks the presenters to think about how to involve the community in the solutions.
Okay. And I believe for future reference that small changes like that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I believe that those can be made, changes can be made still during the consent agenda.
No, they can't. They have to be pulled off consent.
Okay, my mistake.
They can be done before the meeting if the person who wants to make the change sends it to the secretary before the meeting. That's why the minutes are posted before the meeting.
Okay, good to know. So if in the future someone, we should all be responsible for reading through the minutes prior to the meeting, and then we should direct feedback to the secretary who can then make those changes and then note them. Would you repost the revised minutes and note the changes that have been made since the previous posting verbally at the meeting or something like that? Okay. All right. So now that this change is proposed, do we move? So Jill basically is moving to amend the minutes.
I move we accept the amended minutes.
I second that. Okay, let's take a roll call vote to approve the minutes as amended.
All right. Jill?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Claire?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Dave. Did I miss somebody this time?
Yes. That's only 6. I believe.
Sorry.
Dan.
I didn't.
Dan.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm very
Okay.
tired if you can't tell.
That's okay. Okay, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. Minutes are approved as amended. Now let's move on to item 6, which is 5, council activity.
So I have something.
Okay.
So I believe some of you know that we had a meeting with Supervisor Horsley, CAL FIRE, Fire District planning regarding the lighting. This was Monday, 2 p.m. And, you know, me and Steve basically kind of went through all of the large respected organizations that are making suggestions on how to deal with responsible lighting. Hand it over to Steve. Steve did some, you know, technical kind of details and went to Supervisor Horsley on his view of it. He handed it right off to Gary Burke. He used to be I don't know what his title is now, but anyway, at the fire district, Coastside Fire Protection District board director, one of the directors, and he. I'm going to call it. Okay, I'm going to call it a defense. He didn't. He came off strong, telling me and Steve and all the residents that were there that he was very disappointed that nobody was said one thing about the safety of his staff. In fact, we did discuss safety in the MCC letter. It's right there. I don't know if you read our letter or not. And thank you, Dave, for putting that in. It's very important that you did. Dave's a wise man. So he went from, you know, safety. You know, you guys are asking me to operate a fire district unsafely. No, we never did. So that's where it became an argument, ran out of time. That was the meeting. That was it. So in my opinion, the defense was to avoid actual real conversation about responsible lighting, suggestions from all these large organizations, IDA, AMA, Illuminating Engineers Society, Autobahn, Sierra Club, the Astronomical Association. He clearly does not want to have any discussion about responsible lighting. He wants to say that the dimming is all that we can do. It solves everybody's problems. Nobody should complain. In fact, you know, the dimming, as Steve mentioned earlier, or the glare, I should say, because, you know, there's a lot of traffic right there and the wildlife, you know, the poles shine glare onto the drivers on the road. You know, that glare comes out and it impacts the vision of drivers. And it goes on and on. But so what I am, based on that, I think what we need to do is, and truly, in my opinion, our issue is with planning, whether or not they want to approve the terms of conditions, the conditions of approval. So I think that we should invite the planning department and have them come out, you know, or be on Zoom, obviously, and explain to us, you know, how their plan is actually meeting the conditions of approval when you can still stand out in the street and you still get the glare. And why are they not focused on other responsible lighting procedures. So I think that we need to have it on the agenda next meeting, and we can also talk about some LCP issues, and that's all I have for now.
Okay, we can talk about that during future agendas.
Actually, I'm sorry. Just one real fast thing is that one of the guys at IDA clearly delineates why better lighting is safe, not more lighting. Better lighting is safe, and more lighting can be less safe. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Claire?
I was invited to participate in a two-part focus group on mental health and policing on the coast side. And we had one session, large number of people involved, mostly mental health people. They're explicitly excluding the sheriff's department from this group. And I think a big thrust of this is to assist the city of Half Moon Bay in deciding how to handle their contract with the sheriff's department. But there's also implications for the entire coast, all of us being served by the same department. So I told them I was a member of the MCC, but I'm there as a mental health person. It's interesting.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. Hopefully we'll hear more details as that progresses.
Okay, sure.
Anyone else with council activity? Okay, then let's move on to future agendas. So there a few things have come up tonight. So let me tell you all the things that I have as potential items for the next couple agendas. Virtual meetings is a discussion that we just have to have because our Zoom license is about to run out. And I just want to talk about a little bit about, we'll probably have to renew that because we're going to be virtual at least for a little while longer. We don't really have any guidance on when we would go back in person yet. But just the format of the Zoom meetings, I think some of it has worked well, some of it hasn't. So we have to have that on the agenda. I don't think it'll be a very long topic. I have Sam here. That is something that Greg wants to bring to the agenda about the lawsuit. It was Sewer Authority Midcoast side. Is that the word? Midcoast. Anyway, that's a potential agenda item. I know Greg's very interested. I would want to have at least one other volunteer to work with him on that. And then we talked about definitely having the letter on the eucalyptus removal on private property. So I want to have that to continue to make progress on the wildfire item. We could potentially have a follow-up on LHMP. Dan's mentioned the fire station lighting. So those are all potential items for the very next meeting. We need to make some decisions because we can't have all of those things. So basically, I think we can have virtual meetings, the letter on eucalyptus, and one other topic. And then the meeting on the 26th, we've already scheduled Reimagine Samtrans to come and speak. And then wildfire preparedness is just a broader thing on future agendas. So I need volunteers basically if we want to either have Sam follow up on fire station lighting or any other topic specifically on the next meeting. I need to hear from people. Greg, what do you have to say?
I think I need to make you aware of what happened Monday night at the SAM meeting. Half Moon Bay blocked the budget process. And I won't go into all the technical details and what might be behind the maneuvering. But in my mind, there's a very real issue that the safe operation of SAM is jeopardized by this lawsuit. In addition, the potential cost to residents right now are about $1,000 per connection, will approach $4,000. Could we wait and have that another time? Maybe we could. But it's heating up. The lawsuit's going to trial. And I am very concerned that we're not representing the MCC's interests here if we don't speak to that lawsuit. But that's just me.
So I'd ask, does anyone else feel strongly about that issue and want to work with Greg on it? Claire?
Yeah, I had already talked with Greg about doing that.
Okay.
Just informally.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else want to join that group? Do the two of you think you could have something ready? I guess it would be probably a letter from the MCC that you'd like to have the MCC approved for May 12th. Is that where you're thinking you would go with this?
Claire, I think we could have a letter. I think the question is, should we have a discussion at the council? This is to Dave's point about the LHMP and other things. Without the entire council first being plugged in on what the issues are, getting them to agree to a letter that they see 72 hours before a meeting, I think that's a problem.
Well,
I'm going to see.
You don't have to wait till 72 hours before the meeting for the letter. You could publish the letter a week before the meeting and give everybody time.
Is that true?
Of course.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah. And
Okay.
what you can do sometimes, and it does work sometimes, is to get the letter out, let everybody read it, and then have a good formal focused presentation about the issues so that people have a chance to look clearly at the issues before we take a vote on the letter. That seems to work a lot of times.
Yeah, and if
I can make that happen if you can, Claire. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can
interjection. If this has anything to do with active lawsuits, one of you needs to talk to county counsel's office before we write that letter as the MCC.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim Fox knows me well. With Michelle's permission, I'll be happy to talk to him.
Okay, so just include me on that. Tim Fox wants anything channeled through me. So I don't have the bandwidth to work on the letter, but I will be, since there's no one else, I will join the group in terms of like getting legal advice from Tim. So let's do that. And let's aim to have something for the, May 12th agenda.
We wouldn't necessarily have to have a letter even if that would help legally, but just sort of a presentation of here's what the issues are in the lawsuit, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that people are up to speed.
That's already done. I can do that in a minute.
Well,
great.
Let Claire look at it and we'll come back to you.
Okay.
We can do things together, Greg. Okay, good.
And we should do things together. Okay. The fire station lighting issue, Dan, I don't think we're going to have, I don't know. Why don't you work on that? I don't know that we have room on the May 12th agenda. We might have to push that to May 26th.
Well, everybody has to understand that, we don't know when the planning department is going to, could you call the planning department and ask if we get a commitment for them to not finalize and approve that project? We're up against that. So if the longer we wait, the more we're going to look like, being a day late, dollar short.
I believe we already had a statement from the planning department that they were not going to do that. That we were not going to be in the review process. Wasn't that in their earlier letter?
Kind of.
And we're going to accept that?
Accept that. Yeah.
Do we have to accept that?
I don't think we have much choice. We're part of the county and they're the county and that is their function.
Well, if we're going to have any input, it should be done soon.
I think we should, regardless, I think we need to talk about it. And I think the longer we shouldn't wait. I think we have to have it the next meeting.
Okay, so we have the SAM lawsuit, the virtual meetings, the letter on the eucalyptus, and potentially the fire station lighting and the LHMP. I mean, not all that. We can have maybe 3 items max.
Can we,
or if we really push it.
Can we push the virtual meeting to a later date, or is that a deadline?
I think what's the date that we need to renew our Zoom license, Dave?
It's before the May 26th meeting. We can split the discussions up. We can just vote to authorize renewing the Zoom license at, I believe it's $129. I'll have the amount for you for the agenda.
Yeah, we're just going to
not have any discussion.
We're definitely going to need that. The potential discussion was whether that license suited our needs, and will continue to suit our needs. We could just do that, and then if we needed to change or upgrade later, we can always do that. So I'm fine with that. Okay.
Could I just ask?
So let me. What's up?
I appreciate the priority of the fire station lighting and the need for timeliness. Is it possible Claire and I could work on something? And since apparently we're allowed to present it or turn it into the MCC before a meeting for people to read, we got two unknowns here. One is what council's going to say, which may limit our ability to act. And the other thing is bringing everybody up to speed. So if Claire and I could work together, find out what the council requires and come up with some kind of presentation, then you could decide maybe to punt it because for some reason it might not be as timely.
Yeah, I don't need to decide right now what's going to be on that meeting. I just don't want to promise something that I'm not going to be able to keep. And so right now, I think the only thing I'm going to promise is going to be on that meeting is the virtual meetings and the letter about the eucalyptus removal with the county planning. And if you guys can work, if Greg and Claire can work on the SAM stuff, if Dan and anyone else who wants to volunteer can work on the fire station lighting, you guys have to, I mean, it's almost going to be like who can make the most progress. We'll put, and demonstrate the more urgent need, and we'll put that on the meeting for May 12th. The LHMP is the third thing that I just, it doesn't seem to me right now that we're going to have something ready for May 12th. But if we, it'll be basically like competing priorities, and one or two of those things can make it onto the agenda.
But
based on progress.
Michelle, if we have the fire station lighting on the next meeting, can we invite someone from planning to come explain how code violations are dealt with?
You can ask them. If that's a bigger issue.
That's a half an hour to an hour agenda item.
Yeah, code compliance is I feel like that's a whole separate issue. Let's keep it to the fire station lighting. And I think it's to make it succinct, let's have it be a letter that we write stating our ongoing concerns. So Jill, you and Dan are going to work on that, I guess? Are you volunteering?
I'll work on it with Dan.
Okay. All right. So I'll just be in touch with everyone individually on their projects about progress. And, if it doesn't make it onto May 12th, we have room on May 26th. All we have right now is the SAM Trans presentation for that date. Sound good? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
So moved. Second.
Right, a second?
Moved and seconded.
Okay.
Anybody against? No, carried by acclamation.
Oh, I thought that wasn't allowed in virtual meeting. We'll see. Okay.
There were no
adjourned.
votes. I did call.
You want to stay here, you can.
No, that's okay. Everyone have a great night. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.